Cinphomaniac is full of spoilers. If the movie's there in the title, we're probably gonna say everything that happens in it.
I did what I had to do to protect our world.
You break the rules.
Look out!
To become a hero. I do it, I become the enemy. It doesn't seem fair.
To me, the great hope is just people who normally wouldn't make movies are going to be making them. And, suddenly one day some little fat girl in Ohio is going to be the new Mozart, and make a beautiful film with her little father's camera. To me, the great hope is girl in Ohio is going to be the new Mozart. To me, the great hope is people who normally wouldn't make movies are going to be making them. To me, the great hope is Ohio is going to be the new Mozart. To me, the great hope is people who normally wouldn't make movies are going to be making. To me, the great hope is one day some little fat girl in Ohio is going to just be Mozart. Who wouldn't make movies in Ohio is making the new Mozart. Just people who normally wouldn't make Mozart and be making. To me, the great hope girl in Ohio is going to make a Mozart beautiful film with her little father's camera recorder, and for once the so-called professionalism about movie Mozart destroyed forever, and it'll really become an art form. That's my opinion.
I feel like this is like, at least like according to my own words on air, this has got to be one of the most like anticipated episodes, because I feel like I've been talking about this movie coming out the entire time we've been doing this podcast. I mean, that makes sense because when we started recording this, like WandaVision had just come on, and so it was already kind of like,
that's exactly right.
Yeah. So we were talking about this literally the entire time that we've been doing this. So it's like, now it's finally here. Now we finally get to talk about the real actual movie, having seen it. And I saw it a second time yesterday. So I'm fresh on it, but quick, relatively quick, before we get into that, I just wanted to like talk a little bit about some other stuff I've been watching, just because it's like, this is just funny. So, and this is like also like a sort of like a pitch on a potential future episode as well, or at least relatively speaking. But earlier this week, I rewatched for the first time in a few years, though it like, part of the point is that like I never forgot a single like word of it almost. The movie Zoolander, the original Zoolander, not Zoolander
Oh my God.
2.
Amazing.
Doesn't exist. Yeah. Zoolander is amazing, of course.
Iconic.
Yeah, no, I was just out with a friend last weekend, and I don't even know how it came up, but we randomly started quoting Zoolander to each other. And it made me go, oh, I want to watch it. And sure enough, it's on Netflix, though. Apparently, it's leaving Netflix at the end of the month, probably because it's going to another streaming service. That's the thing. Like, when a movie leaves one, it just means it's going to another usually. It doesn't mean it's, like, disappearing.
They probably can't fit in there. Probably because it's a center for ants. They got to move somewhere else.
What is this?
Incredible.
You can't
it has stood the test of time.
Inside the building.
Stood the test of time.
But that's kind of like my whole point is it really has stood the test of time, and I think that was like evident to me just even remembering or recalling the quotes. But like, there's something else about it in particular I'm going to get to in a second that I wanted to like rewatch and reexamine to see if like my memory of it was like as accurate as I thought it was. But just in general, like this idea, this form factor. And then it, weirdly enough, in a way that might not be obvious, this is going to relate a little bit to something we're going to talk about with Strange. But the form factor of this movie, it's pretty much dead at 90 minutes. So it's like really a perfect 90-minute comedy, the way they just do not make these movies anymore at all. Like,
right.
They don't.
And
so it's just like, when I say perfect, I don't mean like it's like everything in the movies or it's like the greatest movie ever. Though I honestly give it, if I'm giving it a rating, which I did on Letterboxd, I'm giving it 5 out of 5 because when it comes to this form, it's about as good as it gets. It's not my favorite. It's not the best. It's like even compared to like something like Dumb and Dumber, I don't think it holds a candle. But like it's still like one of the all-time classics. It was like an instant classic. And it's really because, and this is what I mean about the perfect side of it. I mean, when this 90-minute comedy form is at its best, it really is like every single line. I mean, this is why it's so fun to quote. Every single line, you're just like, I love that line. Oh, that's a great one. That's another great one. That's another great one.
Exactly.
Every single scene, like every bit just works. It's like all genius bits. Like they all hold up, honestly. Like I only found like one, and this actually surprised me because I was like, oh, there's always going to be like 6 or 7 of these. I only found like one joke that I even think would be like outright considered objectionable today, like from like a cultural standpoint. It was pretty funny what it was. I'm not even going to say it because the reason I say it is because it uses a term that we now consider to be a slur. But I won't say it out loud. But anyway, every line is great, and like it also is just this perfect.
I think I know
cast.
exactly what you're talking about.
I think you probably do.
Exactly
We won't say it. We won't say it. We won't say it.
But we know.
We know.
But we know.
We know. Yes, and this cast, like, because I mean, really, it comes down to Stiller and Owen Wilson, but also Jerry Stiller and Will Ferrell they're just so freaking funny. And we mentioned when we talked about the Northman that Alexander Skarsgård's like low key first big movie role was in Zoolander as Meekus. Earth to Meekus, Earth to Brent.
You also need your straight man, though. Christine Taylor did a solid job.
She did a solid job. She's actually very likable.
Like super athletic. Yeah, she's super likable.
She's great in this movie.
The unicorn thing.
Actually, that's the funniest part. I think one of my funniest lines, and one of the first things when I was quoting with my friend was the whole like, it's like, I became bulimic. It's like, read minds. like it's like, no, it means I throw up after every meal. And he's like, they both start laughing. They're like, ah. It's like, Matilda, I throw up after lots of meals. Like they just totally don't get it.
Pounds before show.
It actually, but see, that's actually a perfect example of the genius of the movie, because that is the case. Like, you know what I mean? Like any model would be like, what? Like if they're even being remotely honest, which that's the whole genius too of the comedy is like it's honesty plus, it's like, but anyway, I think, obviously I alluded to before, like I really miss these types of movies. And, if I were to give a pitch on this, because we talked about it, they don't exist anymore. And we've alluded to this before, and it's been written about and talked about, but honestly, I haven't seen like a really, at least in my knowledge, like a truly definitive account of like, not only why it went wrong, but like what it is we were actually lost in the first place, which requires like a real understanding of what this was that I'm talking about. And so my kind of like pitch, if I were to do a podcast on this, which I can say, I guess we probably will do at some point. I don't know when the timing for it will be right, but is like what I'm thinking about is mainly what I would call like the golden age of like studio comedies, and then like subsequently followed by death. Like it didn't really have a bronze age. You can argue it had a silver age, but I just don't even call it that.
Well, I think they stuck to the 90-minute template of like, here's, you have to have the jokes, you have to have the serious break, and it kind of got very nostalgic and like warm feeling to watch those movies that are built that way, that are typically not built that way anymore.
No, I mean, no, I agree. I mean, that's why I highlighted that. Like the form factor in and of itself is like very important to like what it is,
and specific.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Zoolander. I mean, it's so down to a science that like literally like the 30-minute mark and the hour mark are very specific, like act turn scenes. Like you can just like really tell. But it's all no. Like I think the way I look at it, because like if I talk about this golden era, right? And that's what I mean when I say it didn't really have a silver era. There's like the pre-golden era, which has a lot of movies that a lot of people love, including me. The pre-golden era, I would define the golden era as what I would call like, the Carey, Sandler, Stiller, throw in Mike Myers if you want, like, but really there's tons of people. There's, Farley, everybody. That like 93 to 2003 era, like those 10 years basically, from around the time, basically Carrey's movies started coming out to a little bit after Zoolander to basically the time Anchorman comes out. Because I would say when Anchorman comes out, that's like starts like, and then followed by like things like the 4-Year-Old Virgin stuff, that starts like the second part of the golden era, like, which is kind of its own era.
Different wave. Mm-hmm.
But it's back to back, really. Like that era made the movies styles and modes from the previous era outdated. That's why it's distinct. It like basically replaced it. Like they couldn't coexist really. That's why kind of like Sandler and Carey and all these people's careers kind of hit a weird spot around then. But like studio comedy itself, especially as a box office moneymaker and as like a cultural relevancy thing, went strong. It just like replaced itself with a new set of like icons, which would be, and like this is more, that second part's a more director driven era, because you have Farrell as like the big star, but really it's driven by Apatow and McKay as like director, writers, producers more than anything else, right? So, and then, you know, Rogen himself becomes more of a producer director towards the end of that era. And that era goes to about 2013. A little bit, you could argue maybe a little bit after, but I would say like 2013 when you get This Is the End. Literally, I can't think of a more like in hindsight appropriate title for a movie, because that literally was the end. I think Anchorman 2 came out that same year, a little bit after that, like in the fall. But basically, yeah, when you have Anchorman 2, This Is the End, that's the end of that era, because pretty much all the movies after that, all the Apatow movies before that, and after that, McKay just goes to literally direct serious movies. Like after Anchorman 2, that's when he directs The Big Short. So he's done with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Apatow's subsequent movies that he directed, fucking Trainwreck, and then, or This Is 40, I think came out that same year. Yeah, those not, you know, you can have different debates. I actually like Trainwreck a fair bit, but like, you can have different debates about it, but like it was not the same. It lost a lot of cultural relevancy. It was not the same people starring with the same sort of cultural relevancy. 2013 is also when, you know, you got Jonah Hill doing Wolf of Wall Street, which I think is his best and most comedic performance of all. But like that was like him kind of being like, especially after Moneyball, which came out like 2 years before, it was like, this is me now moving out of that zone to be more like a well-rounded serious actor, some of which didn't work out quite that as I think he wanted it to. But you have Rogen still kind of trying to produce and make these films. And this is what I call like the decline era, because from about 2013 to 2016, there were still attempts at studio comedies like Knockoffs and other people making runs. And there's some movies I like, and certainly some things I like from this era.
Would Bridesmaids fall into that category?
No, because Bridesmaids, I didn't mention, but Bridesmaids came out, I think, 2011. So it was during
yeah, nice.
So it was during the proper run, is what I would say. Yeah. So I can name, I don't even want to name some of the movies that are in this era, because like I don't even want to, like, in case we do the pod, I want to like make sure I'm clear on what I think about each of them, because some of them I'm gonna be like, that one was terrible, but maybe it's not as bad as I remember. And that one was like good, but maybe it's way worse than I remember. So I wanted to reserve that. But yeah, there's this decline period. And then I'd say about 2016, by 2016, like really, like, I feel like studio comedy, like you can look after that. There's like 2 or 3 or 4 a year, and they're very mediocre and nobody seems to really care about them. And the Marvel machine is going so strong that it's like, that's the only thing that's driving people to the box office at that point, and streaming, and you see where it's going. So yeah, we can do a full autopsy of all that in an episode. I kind of want to, especially just going back to the point of the golden era, especially the phase 1, because Zoolander, the movie I just mentioned, is like part of that. Is like, that's really when, because one of the differences I would say between the second phase, the Apatow, like McKay phase, is that the form factor gets a lot more experimental, which I think was part of the genius, but it was like, you're moving away from that perfectly structured 90-minute thing that where you're just like, boom, boom, boom. We have story beats that are a little bit plug and play, but who cares? Because it's just about like these bits and turning a sketch into a workable movie, which is, I think, where Zoolander really gets the peak, because, you know, that easily could just be a silly sketch character. And, you know, they turn it into, that's usually how all these stories start, by the way, is like whether they were a literal sketch on SNL or just something that the performer in question would like do, you know, in other places, or a variant of, it becomes like, okay, how do we turn this into a movie? And then that's where the screenwriting part of it comes in. And I think that's very interesting sort of studio era screenwriting kind of craft, if you will. Anyway, the other side of Zoolander this was the other reason I wanted to watch it. And I was like, I have to say, Oh yeah, everything I remember about it was not only correct, but it was even better than I remembered, which was really telling something. The Zoolander, especially for a movie that came out in 2001, is like honestly like one of the most like I really mean by modern standards, like one of the most like progressively messaged like movies you could possibly imagine. Like really, like it's actually really funny why, and you might not remember what I'm talking about, even though it's literally the plot of the movie. The whole point of the movie is that like the hero of the film. Well, Derek is like the hero, but he's like supposed to be the villain. Like he's being brainwashed,
finding himself, right?
Well, yeah, there's all that, but like
that.
No, that's there's all that, but I'm specifically talking about the sort of like because it's trying to be like a satire of like a political thriller, and the way it does this is it says, okay, the premise is the Prime Minister of Malaysia is like this great labor leader hero who's like doing all these pro-worker reforms in Malaysia, which is against the fashion industry. And they show him as like this shadowy cabal of capitalists. And they're like, basically like, oh, okay, we're going to assassinate him because that's how we defeat our political enemies is we use assassination. And then obviously that loops into the whole joke, oh, male models are the perfect assassins. Which I get into because there's actually some smarter, sharper detail in that. But yeah, it's basically this idea. The Prime Minister of Malaysia, they want to assassinate him. Ultimately, obviously, Derek, because he's able to like awaken from undo his brainwashing and whatever, doesn't do it, saves the Prime Minister of Malaysia. And what I really think is interesting too is like he's just treated as like the sweetest old man. He's clearly a good guy. It's good that he's saved. And therefore, it's unrepentant that the fashion industry, because that's the thing. The movie doesn't even like play like there's the good side of the fashion industry. No, it's the entire fashion industry, which I would say is clearly itself depicted for all industry, all global industry, all capital. And it's like, no, they're the bad guys. They're bad. They want to kill this innocent person, this innocent leader who's simply trying to make his country a better place and stop child labor laws. Because that's the other very specific thing they throw in there. Is that by the way, Dana, I think you meant to maybe text someone else, but you texted me.
Yep, my mom. She just called and I declined.
I was confused. I'm like, I know we're podcasting. We're literally talking right now. I was like, anyway,
Marcus, mama, go start with an M in my phone, okay?
Yeah, I get you. No, yeah. So like this is one of the funniest jokes in the movie is when Derek actually goes into the brainwashing thing. Mugatu, who's like basically the principal villain. And that's also just Will Ferrell at his like absolute funniest, I'd argue. Mugatu is like literally like, hi, I'm little Cletus. I'm from the days back when child labor laws
with the full beard and mustache and oh my God.
But he's basically like, so it actually threads
they can't
the
even
needle. But like it's the funniest joke and visual, exactly what you say. But like the genius of it is actually threads the needle that no, this isn't just a modern problem in the third world. This used to be everywhere. This used to be England and America too. But we made laws that said no, child labor is bad. But we still allow it to happen in these other places. So now that these places are like, well, actually, we want to reform our child labor laws. Our industries who profit off of that are like, no, you're not allowed to. We'll kill you for it. So I just thought like, wow, holy shit. Like you look at the ingredients of the film, and you take out the fashion industry, if they're standing they're literally a stand-in for themselves because the fashion industry is a huge part of this like especially in those parts of the world, literally Malaysia.
Right.
Like
fast
this,
fashion.
They're basically like the Gestapo over there. They're
like throwaway clothes as well. Like that's part of it too, is you're just meant to churn out low quality things so that you have to buy another one in 6 weeks when it falls apart.
Yeah, I mean, you look at how Nike and all these places like operate like in those regions. It's straight up like it's exactly what they implied. Like the Zoolander is not exaggerating it at all. Literally, they have like child labor camps and just slave labor essentially, and they just pay them nothing and they just work them to death for like 20 hours a day. So it's as bad as they say. And then you look at the idea. Oh, how do they solve the problem? They send assassins. Now this is. Don't mention the CIA or government agencies to kind of keep it simple and like to the point, like funny. It's literally just Mugatu's like their guy. But that's how the CIA actually operates.
They said, no, they actually did make a joke about the CIA having killed Kennedy. They said those CIA boys in the grassy knoll, right? And then they had them in the high five.
Yeah, but
those are models.
Yes. So you're right, but like that it's still what I'm saying, because it's like they're just like, oh, those are models, but that's just really funny too, because the previous example, the first example, they go every major assassination. So they start with Lincoln. Now this is really interesting because, the various John Wilkes stories, I can't really tell you too much, but I'm not hardly an expert on it. But forget what the real history is. The simple explanation, if you were just to use basic political understanding, to things. Oh, right. Yes. Like, textile, well, not textile because they were mostly, but like anyone profiting off the cotton industry, which is basically the entire South, which is what was fueling the slavery fervor in the first place. The minute you outlaw that creates a loss to profits, which then gives a reason, just like in these cases in the third world, but this is local, boom. And if you're talking about Kennedy's similar-ish thing, they kind of like mentioned this, Kennedy was increasing, tariffs on trade or something. Again, I don't even know exactly what they're referring to, if that's accurate. It doesn't matter, because the basic premise of, industry and capitalists in these places, they don't want things to be, they want the cheapest labor possible. They want the most aggressive control possible. The minute someone in politics,
really what it comes down to
challenges it, they get killed.
Having a wider profit margin. They can do the same things and make the same products here, but why would you do that if you can make 500 times as much money somewhere else? That's why. Greedy. Yeah, greed. It's all greed.
I mean, it's like a whole different thing we don't have to get into, but like even places that like in America that will like say like, oh, this shirt is made in America, there's usually some asterisks on that. So I'll just
absolutely.
But anyway,
I think because the law only states that only part of it has to be made in America to say it's made in America.
Right. No, that's a big part of it. And there's some politics that will be like, okay, well, let's.
It's a percentage,
so
like a percentage has to be made. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just like the idea that, like, especially compared to other movies and the Hollywood movies, that like the way they treat this prime minister in Malaysia as like he's this sweet, nice old man. He's clearly a good guy. Derek saves him in the end. He thanks him and it's good, as opposed to just like depicting him as like some like crazy militarized mustache guy who's like, okay, yeah, it's bad to kill him, but he's still whatever. It's like, it shows me that weirdly enough, even in a Hollywood movie made in 2001, they were like, they actually, for whatever reason, stumble, incidental or not, like ended up making a movie that was like, no, like the Malaysians and the pro workers are good, and it's actually the fashion industry and all these people in America who are insane and greedy and terrible, and taking advantage of male models. But why male models? Are you serious? I just explained it. That's, by the way, one of the great like cameos David Duchovny. See, that's how they were really thinking. All the cameos in this movie. We could have a whole separate conversation of that. I guess.
Well, the writing is so amazing because there is two whole separate. There's like the face and bodies, and there's the like hand models. There's this one woman who's like the most successful model in the world, and she's just like, her hands are in everything.
I've been told I've been told I should be a hand model, by the way.
You have nice hands.
I have nice hands. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. But you have to practice your posing. It doesn't.
I have to practice my posing, and I have to get one of those little like pods to like perfectly.
I have a weird hitchhiker's thumb. I have a weird hitchhiker's thumb. Like it sticks out a lot. And I did hand modeling once for a phone company, which I can't name. And I had to hold it. They were like, can you hold it normal? I'm like, this is how I would hold it. And they're like, what's wrong with your thumb? And I was like, this is how I would hold it. And they're like, well, pretend it's a normal thumb and just hold it like that. And so they showed me, I had to like pretend, like cup it, like use the tippy tip of my fingers to hold just the tips of my fingers to hold the phone.
Yeah.
Because the way I would hold it makes me look like a freak, I guess.
God.
Never booked another hand modeling job after that one. So
well, it's a tough racket. You face and jockey boys don't understand that.
This is not a joke. I'm doing some shoe catalog modeling this week.
Oh, no kidding. So you're foot modeling?
Yeah, I'm just gonna wear like 150 pairs of shoes. I think it's gonna be like, those pictures where it's just a foot in a shoe.
Oh
it's
my
like
God.
ankle area and down.
No kidding. This is so
Yeah,
funny.
I have to drive. I have to
right
drive
now.
to the OC. I have to drive to the OC to do this. So I'm very excited. I'm hoping I'm going to get some free shoes. The company is very cute. I would very much wear their stuff, so I hope they give me some stuff. But I don't want to shout out to them anything because they haven't officially shot me anything yet. So
good, smart thinking.
But just a thing.
No free advertising.
I was not even that. They might look at the pictures and be like, never mind.
Right.
Your feet are weird. Just like the hand guys.
Wow. Yeah.
You never know.
There's some judgy types on that for sure.
Well, if my thumbs are weird, it begs to reason that the rest of my feet are weird too. Who knows what they'll say? But I'm gonna be a foot model this week.
Well, okay. Well, they're not a good segue from that, but I will say
I'll let you know. I've been one of the face and body boys before, but this is one of my first times.
Oh, I know you've been one of the face and body boys. No. So, one other quick thing that just very quickly I want to shout out is, and it's funny because we still have not released the episode on this, but this is giving me reason to like, oh yeah, let's get this one maybe out there soon. Hopefully, if I can manage it. There's on the Criterion channel, they've just put together an interesting little collection of Richard Linklater's films, and it's just a good reminder, like, what great director. And like, it's not even the ones you'd think, because a lot of his bigger movies aren't included, but it's a lot of the smaller and more interesting ones. A lot of the ones with Ethan Hawke, actually, not the Before trilogy or Boyhood, those aren't included, but they have the Newtown Boys and like a lot of the sort of strange, like stranger. They have Scanner Darkly, which is actually made the one I'm going to watch this week or at some point. So check out the Linklater collection on Criterion. Just one my way of shouting it out. Last thing I want to talk about before we go all in on Strange and MCU, and there's a little bit of a tie-in on this. It's been a strange time. Wow, I did not intend to make a pun there. It's been I really did not. It was total brain slip. It's been an interesting time. Just like the last 3-4 weeks have just been an onslaught, and it's not ending anytime soon, which is kind of my point. It's just been this onslaught of like major either TV shows returning or new ones starting that are big important shit like for me. So it's like Monday, Sundays have just been like, and up until recently, even Wednesdays have just been like, what the hell? Like how do I get through all this shit? So some of the ones I just want to shout out, and some of them are mid-season, and they're like, I just think like we could do a more in-depth discussion on it. I'm sure people know, but like, I just want to give like my quick thoughts on the record on some of this stuff. So Better Call Saul, that's in its the first part of its final season. The second part, I think, will be later this summer. So it'll kind of like, other than like a 3-4 week hiatus, feel like kind of one long season. And that's just been, I mean, the last night's episode was pretty, or 2 nights ago's episode was pretty interesting. But in general, it's been a really, really fun ride. And I rewatched all of the previous season, like right before it came out, just so I'd, be on it. And man, that show still, like, people are really now beating the drum that it's better than the parent that fathered it, Breaking Bad. And I don't know if I'm quite ready to say that, but it's definitely its own thing in its own right. And I think it's a much more sophisticated show, which is product of the fact that it's coming afterwards. And it's like taking a lot of the lessons and understanding that came from making the previous show to it. And that's just like, when they talk peak TV, that's the peak of quality right there. And a great story that I find very inspiring in terms of like deep character work is like the name of the game on shows like that, and process work. Then we have, this is a new show. It's only going to be 6 episodes total, and then it's done. So we're already halfway through it, but, is We Own This City, which is on HBO right now. And that is 6-part limited series, true story about, Baltimore City policing.
I didn't realize it was a true story. Wow.
Oh yeah. No. It's like, when I say it's like, it's literally using the real names of real people.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's all real. So if you're like, holy shit, that's some fucked up shit, it's like, yeah, that all really happened.
We built this city.
We own this city. Not
we own this city.
Yeah, that's it. We built the city is a different thing. Yeah, we own this city is David Simon and George Pelecanos, and the people that made The Wire has like a huge chunk of the cast, The Wire, back in different roles because now they're playing, real people, but like, people that were like, playing, criminals and drug dealers are now playing cops and vice versa. It's very interesting to see that kind of cast repertoire thing going on there. And especially years later, like on the most recent episode, one of the people that played one of the kids on the original The Wire is like now an adult playing a cop. So it's like, it's really fascinating to watch. And it's just like the best shit. It's like so fucked up what you're seeing in the show, just insanely like the most brutal, callous, just like, but like, again, if you're coming kind of from the perspective I'm coming from, which is in alignment with a show like this, you're like, none of this surprises you. It's like, you understand you already know just how like fucked up these systems in America when it comes to policing really are, especially in a city like Baltimore, and you understand how it works. It's like, I've watched The Wire. I got my BA and now I'm getting my master's, but like, it's like, it really hones in on, it's like, no, it's way worse than we made it seem like in that show. And because A, it's gotten worse actually. And B, like, there's really no room for hand holding on this shit anymore. And that makes it sound like it's a bummer to watch, but I have to tell you, like, it's the biggest joy of my week to watch, because even at its most brutal, I don't know, the being in that world, being immersed in that world is such like an endorphin, adrenaline, and dopamine hit for me. Like, I just fucking love being in that world. Like, I don't know, like, because John Bernthal plays like one of the main guys, and he wasn't even in The Wire. Like Josh Charles, these were guys who are big actors, weren't in The Wire, but are from like, Bernthal's from DC, Josh Charles is from a different part of Maryland, but they do that accent so well. So they're just like in the car talking all the O's and shit, and like just like being absolute scumbags. But like, I love watching scumbag cops, honestly, and that's like a great movie genre tradition, really, and for good reason, even though it's fucked up. But I love that type of story. I mean, it's why I like noir. Noir is all about the corruption and messed up stuff, but I like being in that world. It's like there's something to it for me. It's like it's like I guess it's a sensation of hyper realism is maybe a good way to put it. But anyway, yeah, and similarly, like, I really like the Apple TV Plus show with Gary Oldman's Slow Horses. That's a similar thing where it's like spies and government agency people in real life I don't really like, but in the context of genre TV, especially when it's done realistically, I really am like, yes, let me live in this world. And Ozark just finished up, and that was really great. Interesting choice on the ending, since a lot of
don't tell me
it. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about
me.
it. That would be a whole interesting conversation to have. But then lastly, Atlanta's been going on, and we still have a few more episodes left, and then there's a whole nother season coming out, I think later this year. That's the final season. So they releasing 2 seasons in 1 year type of thing. But yeah, so far it's been really interesting, like, experiment in storytelling. And I've enjoyed it. Like, not every single episode has worked for me on the same level, but the most recent one was maybe one of the best Atlanta episodes ever. It was really, really startling and cool. But yeah, overall, it's been really great stuff. So if you thought all that was good, wait to the shit that's coming out later this year, or even later this month in the case of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which, like, They dropped another trailer, and like, they didn't really need to show more, and they didn't really show more. They were very careful to like really just repeat a lot of the same shit. But
it just looked like a different cut of the same
kind of. Exactly, which makes me think, again, they're disciplined. Like, I think they're really only showing stuff from the first 2 episodes. They're not showing anything maybe even beyond like the first episode and a half. I have no idea. It just depends like how it's really structured, but there's 6 total. So yeah, I'm super excited to see where they go with it. There's so much potential. There's a little bit of a nervousness, like, oh man, with all that potential, I hope it can fit it all. But based on the way like things like, The Mandalorian did shit, I was like, man, they usually went as far as you thought your imagination would go, and then some. They're like, so I hope this follows that trend. I think it will, and it will be impressive. And then the last trailer that came out this week, and the trailer this was a really good trailer for something like this. It doesn't come out, I think, till August, but the House of the Dragon trailer. Did you see this?
House of the Dragon? I've not seen that trailer.
Yeah, that's the Game of Thrones prequel show that's coming out.
Oh, wait. I did see it. I did see that trailer. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
about the like backstory of the
House Targaryen
and the Targaryens.
Yeah. Well, so it's really cool. Like we'll definitely talk about it once it gets
what
closer.
That leads me to wonder is if they're doing a backstory for House Targaryen, are they doing one for each of the houses more? You know what I mean?
Well, they're gonna,
because we kind of have one.
Well, no.
We kind of have the Starks.
You're gonna get all the, or not all of them, but a lot of the other houses, and they're certainly
they're way past
story
bloodlines.
because not I'll limit myself to a few minutes on this, but I am a George R. R. Martin like reader. Like I know all this shit. So it was like I haven't read this stuff, and obviously I haven't watched Game of Thrones in a long time. So like I had to like, it's still like I haven't even done my deep dive back yet, but I've retained a lot of it. So thing to keep in mind about this show is it's mostly based off of Fire and Blood, which is the book George R. R. Martin wrote as kind of like an expanded take on these novellas he had already written that are all about the Targaryen history, and really just, it's not just the Targaryen history. That's the thing I'm just really trying to think. It's just the history of what was going on in Westeros about a little less than 200 years before the start of Game of Thrones proper. And so that's about there's like 300 years basically between Aegon the Conqueror, when the modern version of Westeros with the Targaryens in control was founded, and when Game of Thrones started. This is 100 years into that, but 200 years before the start of the show. So it's like a third of the way into the Targaryen reign, right? And this is when a very important civil war called the Dance with Dragons, which they alluded to all the time in Game of Thrones, the Dance of the Dragons, happens. And the Dance of the Dragons is important because, spoiler, after the Dance of the dragons went extinct. That's why when Daenerys has the egg and hatches the first dragon, it's the first dragon in like 200 years to be born. Right. But before that, so for like the first 100 years of Targaryen rule, from the time of Aegon the Conqueror to the Dance of the Dragons, there were a lot of dragons. Like every Targaryen had their own dragon. And like, I'm not just talking like the king, I'm talking the cousins and the uncles and the nephews, right? So they had all their dragons. That's why the Dance of the Dragons as a war became crazy, because it was like multiple Targaryens engaged in a civil war against each other with their dragons. So like, that's not going to be season 1 of this show. That's going to be later in the show, maybe the final seasons of it. Where the show's starting from, presumably, is the beginning of that history, where it's about, and these are the characters you see in the trailer. There's Rhaenyra Targaryen. She's kind of like Daenerys before Daenerys, which the show and the trailer is very aware of, right? Because they want to give her father, Viserys, wants to give her the throne, make her queen, right? As his daughter. But that's not how shit works, because it's supposed to go to your firstborn son. He doesn't have any firstborn sons at the time that he originally says Rhaenyra is going to be queen. So it's like, oh, he's turning over the throne to a woman as his heir. That's not what you're supposed to do. And like, there's previous like precedent set about it in Westeros, like not even that long before this, to the point where another character you see in the trailer, I think it's, Rhaenys Targaryen. She was passed over the throne because she was a woman by these precedents. So she's like very self-aware of like this sort of immediate, like,
it would be incredibly unfair. Yeah.
So
skip her and give it to another female heiress.
So Rhaenyra is slated to become the queen. However, and you'll see she's in the trailer, there's this other woman named I think it's Gemma Aaron? Yeah.
Or
no, not Gemma Aaron. No. It's a Hightower. It's Alicent Hightower. Sorry, Alicent. I'm just confusing. There's so many different names and eras, and people even have the same names from different time periods. No, Alicent Hightower Because what this ultimately breaks down to, this civil war, is going to be a war between two would-be queens, or literal queens, depending on your side, right? So Alicent Hightower is the daughter of Otto Hightower, who's the hand of the king to Viserys, right? And they plot, basically, I'm kind of spoiling what will probably be the first season, but it's just like everyone kind of knows this if you know anything about these books. But I don't know, whatever. Sorry if you don't want to listen to this, skip ahead like 40, like, I don't know, 2 minutes. I don't think you're going to mind knowing Data. It's just something to look forward to.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
Yeah. So Alicent Hightower and her father basically plot to marry Viserys, because Viserys at this time doesn't have a wife. That's one of the reasons he's even passing it on to his daughter. And he's not dead yet at this point in the history, right? He's just like, I'm naming my heir. It's going to be my daughter. I know that's against custom, but I don't have sons and I want it to be my daughter. She's my
sick?
Joy. No, he's just like, it's
why
just
is he naming her if he's not sick or dying?
Well, because I mean, this is the thing about,
because it makes her a target.
Well, it does. It absolutely does. So you're right. But the thing is, there's two reasons for that. You're absolutely right to point out what you're pointing, and that is literally what happens, of course. But it's because who takes over the throne is a very important question. And like I was alluding to when I said that his cousin Rhaenys got passed over, one of the big events in Targaryen history right before this point was this whole thing where the old king, I forget what his name was. He was like the longest reigning king. I think it might have been Jaehaerys. He was like the longest reigning king in Targaryen history. So he ruled so long that he had like great grandchildren by the time he died. Right. So it was like when he died, people were like, who gets the throne? Because his original heirs, like his firstborn sons, they're even dead now. So it was like, it became this whole thing where they weren't sure because the family was so big who the throne should go to.
And the patriarch lived so long.
Yeah, so there was a very complicated process to figure out what the precedents and rules should be. Because basically up until that point, there wasn't really set rules. It was just like, my son takes over. My son takes over. It was very obvious, right? But this was the first time that hadn't happened. So they made all these rules. And that's like why then immediately to have those rules kind of like ignored when Viserys says, oh, Rhaenyra is going to be my heir. It was kind of like, what the fuck? Now, I think he did that because he did want it to be like, hey, I don't want another process like what had happened to make me king. I want it to be, because he was the guy who became king from that process. I want it to be, boom, who I want to be the heir. I'm the king. It's my law. I set the law. That's the thing. It's a monarchy. It's not like no law supersedes him in reality. So it's like, yeah, whoever I say is the heir. End of story. Right. But Otto Hightower, his hand, and there's a lot more to this, by the way. And a lot of it I don't even remember, but like I'm sure we'll be all over the show about like the different sort of political calculations going on. But like basically the idea is, hey, Alicent, my daughter, you're like a spunky up and comer who wants power, and I like power. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna set you up with the king. You're gonna seduce him. You're gonna marry him, and then you're gonna give him sons. And that's what literally happens, right? So Alicent Hightower becomes queen.
Great plan. Whore out the daughter.
Great plan. Whore out the daughter, of course. Well, Alicent herself
Classic.
wants this. We'll see how it's played out in the show. But Alicent seemingly wants this for herself, too, because she becomes very, very much of a formidable person as this goes on. Alicent Hightower marries the king. And immediately, as soon as that happens, Rhaenyra is like, uh-oh. Because she's like, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be the queen when my daddy dies. Now he's got a new young wife who's obviously going to try to birth them children, possibly sons. What does that mean for me? Right? Yeah. So another character we haven't mentioned yet, who's very important, is all over the trailers, is Prince Daemon Targaryen, who's the king's younger brother. Right? We all know how younger brother uncle people are, right? They're like, I should be fucking king, right? So younger brother uncle Daemon, who's played by Matt Smith, he's all over the trailer. He's one of the main characters. He's kind of like this cool character in Westeros history because he's the Dragon Knight is what they call him. So he's a formidable warrior, loves his dragons, is powerful. He's like kind of like the Targaryen, right? So he's like, well, you know what us Targaryens like to do? we like to marry our brothers and sisters and cousins and nephews and whatever and nieces. So I'm going to marry my niece Rhaenyra, and then we'll have like this Targaryen super family, and our kids will take over the throne instead of Alicent's kids, which is complicated because Rhaenyra at this point is already married herself and has kids. So
this is messy.
Yeah,
I feel like we need to save the rest of this for another day because I'm already overloaded with this, and I have Doctor Strange things to talk about.
I know. No, we're
going in a wormhole. No. We can't go in this wormhole any further.
No.
We gotta get out.
We did get to the point where I was going to.
This is not episode. This is not Game of Thrones episode.
I know. But that's all. That's all I needed to say anyway, because that's basically the premise. Because now you have what I just said sets up the different sides of this war. So basically, to answer your original question, all the other houses, the Baratheons, the Starks, the Aarons,
they're all going to be in the same series.
They're all going to take sides in this war that I'm referring to between Alicent and Rhaenyra, the two queens. So they in the books, their sides are called the Greens and the Blacks. So there's that. A
lot to look forward to. I'm very excited.
A lot to look forward to. The Dance of the Dragons, like the biggest, best war in all of Westeros. Yeah, there's a reason they named multiple episodes of Game of Thrones in reference to it. They named the 5th book Dance with Dragons. Like it's an important event. Okay. Now, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. Let's just rip the Band-Aid right off.
What we've all been waiting for.
What'd you think?
I actually really enjoyed this movie, and despite having some feelings about specific parts and a lot of questions, overall, I liked it. Yeah. I had fun, and I probably feel like I need to watch it again.
So you've only seen it the one time?
Understand what happened. I've only seen it the one time. Yes.
Yeah.
Last Friday.
Yeah, but just to make sure I have the summary on your point correct. Let me ask you. This is a better way to put it. And
there's some holes. There's some questions, but I really liked it.
You definitely have some notes on it. Is what you're saying?
Well, I have questions, and I have one or two. The notes are not like notes for us. The notes are like for anybody that has small children who's a fan of Marvel. Because
interesting. I feel like I know where you're going with this.
You know where I'm going with this. This was like so graphic with the blood and the ripping and the chunks of flesh and like all that stuff, which is something I think Marvel has in the past, in my opinion, alluded to, but not shown in this way. This was, I think, the goriest of all the superhero movies.
Oh, definitely.
That I can remember, and so I feel like
goriest in the Marvel PG-13 world. I mean, there's things like this is what
there was. Yeah, for sure. It's in Deadpool realm. Wait, was Deadpool PG-13 or rated R?
No, Deadpool's R. And by the way, Deadpool 3 is going to come out in the future, probably not until 2024 or 5, but or maybe late 2023. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to start shooting until next year. So yeah, 2024 probably is when it comes out. And that's going to be the first official R-rated MCU movie because they're keeping it in line with Deadpool 1 and 2 with Ryan Reynolds back and everything. So that's all been confirmed. But up to this point, no R-rated MCU, and other than Deadpool, like even Blade, I'm pretty sure is going to be PG-13. We'll see if Blade ends up being as violent or dark as this movie, but they're definitely trying to expand the container, or at least willing to a little bit. I think they definitely want to keep the core identity there.
I was surprised
does
because
that for sure. Yeah.
If you went into this expecting your typical MCU movie and you take a 10-year-old with you, and I'm sure that they play video games and like whatever, but maybe they weren't expecting that. Because I wasn't. As an adult,
you didn't expect that. You did.
I didn't
You're saying you
that
didn't.
Level. No, I didn't.
I wouldn't say
in all the other movies they
but
they turn the camera or they allude to it, but they're not showing the like ripping of the.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about this in more depth and even why it is the way it is on this. But I'll just say this, like, I wouldn't say I quote expected in the sense that I was also surprised in my head, pleasantly surprised for the most part. Because I would say I didn't necessarily expect it. I was prepared for it. And the main reason for that is because of, well, the entire pitch of this movie since day one, since literally his first announced, even before Sam Raimi became the director of it. Well, when it was Scott Derrickson who directed Doctor Strange 1, but previously had done some pretty vicious horror stuff. The premise of this movie and the pitch for this movie was, we're going to get more horror with Doctor Strange. That's what they said. Since, like, you go back to 2019, they said that. So they've been trying to put that forward. I actually was like kind of a doubter that they would get there, especially when there were these shakeups with the making up of the movie, because I felt like, oh, that must be doing it to soften it. That doesn't seem like that's the case, but we're going to get into all the crazy behind the scenes stuff because I think this movie's very indicative of it.
But I think I walked out of there with a ton of questions. I walked out there with a ton of like, why? Like,
well, give me some of your questions. I want to.
My number one question. Number one. Why didn't Wanda find a universe where she had died? There must be one that she had died and she could be with Vision and the kids. There must be one, right? Why couldn't she find a Vision, find another Vision? She didn't even look for another Vision.
So I want to tackle this. Yeah, I want to tackle this at least to this extent right now, because that's actually a really great question. And I got news for you. If you want to play this game that sounds like you're already playing, you're going to come up with a lot of things, but that's probably the biggest one. I agree with you. Look, we did an episode on it, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And the thing about that movie is, and what that movie reminds you of, which, people were even saying, oh, this is the real Multiverse of Madness movie, is that the concept of multiverse, and whether we can't perfectly say this is what it means in Marvel, but there's no reason to think it doesn't necessarily based on everything that has been said, is that the multiverse is infinite. So to your point, literally anything that can exist does exist, which means exactly what you said. Not only exists at least one universe, but presumably an infinite number, because that's how infinity works. So what's complicated about that is that, well, right, that means that any storytelling solution is immediately in reach. Now, I think that what you specifically said isn't just any storytelling solution is in reach. That's a very specific thing that, forget even the multiverse as a concept. If to whatever extent that Wanda's quest involves the multiverse, which is like, yes, I need
the powers
these children, the powers that she has, it stands to reason that you're right. If she thought about it for more than a minute, wouldn't she just think, hey, there's got to be a universe where I'm dead? Now, if they wanted to say the Marvel multiverse, and this fits a little bit with comic canon, to be fair, the Marvel multiverse is not exactly infinite. It's vast, but not infinite. Then maybe they could have said, no, there's literally no universe where that is the case. And they should have just said that and established it. And I would have gone, okay. But they never did.
Yeah, same.
So,
but I wondered the whole time when she was going to do that. I was like, one of these seconds, she's going to be like, why don't I just find where this has happened to me? I thought it was going to happen when she goes and she realizes that toward the end, she realizes that she's hurt herself and all that stuff. I think maybe she'd be like, someone must have hurt me somewhere else before. And maybe I didn't make it, and I should find that. You know what I mean?
Well, I think
I was just more confused by the logic, but I still had fun, enjoyed the movie, but I was wondering a lot of things.
I think, I'm totally with you, and that's actually, if you're gonna have a number one question, I would say that's the right one to have.
Well, thank you.
Yes, but like, I think, we'll talk a little bit more coming up about like Wanda's role and motivations, because I think there's a lot to be said and there's already a lot being discussed there. Just give me one more question if it's I mean, there's nothing on the level of that for you.
Okay. I guess my other question is, toward the end, do you think Doctor Strange has been taken by the Darkhold, or is he another corrupted Doctor Strange from another universe?
Also,
is that
a very good
Doctor
question.
Strange taken by the Darkhold?
I don't think it's, I can speculate, but I don't think it's possible to know the answer to that based on this movie alone. I think if
no,
anything,
but what do you think?
I'll tell you what I think, but I'll just say I kind of wonder
yeah.
if Marvel even knows right now. I think they might have done what they did at the end there. Yeah, to almost be like, well, this gives us an option. But yeah, okay. I'm gonna punt that question because I think it'll tie into some stuff we're gonna talk about later. So I'll punt that question. But we'll get back to it because I do have some points to raise about like what comes after this movie. So yeah, I think it'll fit in with that. Now, I guess I'll get to what I think, but I'll just say, irregardless of what I think, this movie proves that Marvel's still box office king. I mean, because the numbers are in and it's crushing it. It's not as big as No Way Home, but it couldn't possibly be. But it's this next biggest thing, basically. And yeah, it's doing levels for a MCU solo movie that we haven't seen since, like, I don't know, Thor Ragnarok. I don't know if it's doing better than that. I haven't looked at the exact comps, but it's the best, I think, since around then. It's not Black Panther level, I don't think, but yeah, it's doing very well. Let's just say that. Best since pandemic, you know? So that's that. So irregardless of whatever quote criticisms there are of this movie, I think from the Marvels and the Disneys and the money men, they're kind of like, whatever. You know what I mean? We're winning. We don't care. And I think it's interesting. This is where I want to start because it's going to tie into things we're going to talk about. We're deep now. I mean, I know we seemingly have another 10 years at least, if not to infinity, planned out. I think that Kevin Feige even said, "Oh, we're having a meeting next month to discuss the next 10 years." I'm like, "Oh my god, it'll be like 50 watching these movies." But
yeah, we probably will be.
Yeah, this is the 33rd entry. That's including both movies and now the Disney Plus series in the MCU. If you just include the movies, it's the 28th movie. That's how many of these fucking movies we've gotten now. Technically, it's only the second Doctor Strange solo, but it's 28 in MCU.
And it's
go ahead.
The first, I mean, really prominent Latina superhero. She, I mean, for me, also kind of stole the show in this. Xochitl Gomez. I mean, she was like a little sleeper hit. I didn't think she was going to be so prominent in this film, but I'm excited to watch her career.
Damn, Dana, you're stealing all my lines.
What a strong little actress.
You're stealing all my lines. I was the one who said that first. I texted that to you after I saw the movie. And I was going to bring it up again, of course.
Loved her. Very good, very cute. Can't wait to see it. But also strong, and she has some chops for such a young baby. She's like a little powerhouse. She looks like she did a lot of her stunts, like just killing it. Get it, Xochitl?
Yeah, no. I loved her, and I want to talk about her and her character. But I'll just say, like, yeah, in terms of like this broader MCU, it's like it's crazy to think how far we've come. I mean, that's what I'm saying with the 33rd and the 28th movie, and even in terms of Phase 4, which, by the way, only started in January 2021 with WandaVision, right? And so that's this sense, the fact that this builds so off, not WandaVision, but a lot of things in between this and this, like this feels like this big checkpoint in the arc, even though, as I'm going to get to and explains a lot with this movie, this is all really indicative of the fact that this first year and a half of Phase 4 has been a mess because of COVID and all these other delays and other complications, right? So this is the 11th thing we've gotten in just Phase 4. So we're already as long as Phase 3 was, and we're nowhere near the end of this, presumably. 11th entry, 5th film overall in just a year, a little more than a year. So yeah, they're pumping these fucking things out now. It's a lot to keep up with, a lot to manage. And I think this is why, amongst other things in the movie that I'm literally about to talk about in a second, I don't know if you've been paying attention to this, Dana, but like, even though the movie's doing very well in the box office, this movie is becoming a bit of a more than usual lightning rod. And like, we had a little bit of this during the Eternals thing, but like, people are like, I don't think this movie's good. And I think this is a sign that
I heard
we're
really
at
bad
MCU.
Things.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of people talking a lot of trash, just literally that it was a disaster, that the gore was what was the word that he said? Offensive gore. But the person who said it has a bunch of little kids. So I think I don't think he would have taken them to see some of the more violent Marvel movies anyway.
They need a new rating for a movie like this. They need a PG-13 plus or something.
Yeah, like a plus, because I think he's got a 12-year-old. He's like, this is like, I don't know. Is because borderline, like all the other times I think he lets them watch. But anyway, so that I heard a lot of people saying that the plot didn't make sense. There were too many holes. And I was like, I see the holes, but my holes are with Wanda. My holes are mostly with Wanda and her. But to be fair, when her series aired, my holes were still with Wanda. So
no. So I want to get into this, and I definitely have something broader to say about like the whole nature of the sort of backlash and quote haters on this movie. But I think where I will absolutely agree with everybody, and this is kind of want to start because it's very interesting, because in a lot of ways to me this is a tale of two movies in technically one movie. The first like 30 plus minutes of this movie, right? Basically the first act, the first sort of like stretch of this movie is a complete mess. And it's not only a mess like story-wise, it's absolutely ugly and incomplete, and the visual effects clearly were not done. And it's like a shocking to see this like level of just like unpolished product coming from the Marvel factory. But it's not shocking if you know kind of how we got here, actually. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. So I mean, well, before I even explain how I think that happened, I mean, that assessment that I just gave you, I mean, do you agree with that? How do you feel about it? Like that?
I think I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like if I earmark what I'm talking about, like from point to point, like basically from the time this movie opens, and it opens with this like in media res action sequence, which in theory is cool, but especially on my second watch, Dana, I was even more jarred by it. I was like, this just feels like they just like badly cut the beginning of this movie. It does not feel like they were trying to get your adrenaline pumping. It just feels like they just accidentally cranked on the projector a few minutes late. Like right, it just doesn't work. It just feels very messy and strange. God damn it! Every time I say strange now,
that's what you get.
Yeah, it's just annoying. God damn it. But anyway, like I would say from that start point all the way up into not even at the start of it, but kind of the middle of the Camertage sequence is when Wanda goes like horror mode is what I call it. When she starts like moving through the glass and the mirrors and they're trying to cover stuff up.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's when the movie flips a switch that I won't say stays perfectly on for the rest of it, but for the most part, it's pretty smooth after that in terms of like the movie looks relatively consistent, not perfectly consistent, but relatively consistent. Visual effects are much better done, but most importantly, the film actually feels like now it has a style and a tone and a voice. And yes, something that might offend parents or a little different than the typical MCU, but that's kind of the point, because that's kind of like what I would say is the Sam Raimi effect. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, kind of coming into it mainly. But the thing that I would say is the best, even that's you get once she enters the movie, so it's a little bit before this earmark I'm talking about. The only good thing I could say about this stretch otherwise, which again, I'll stress, looks like shit. I remember the first time I was watching it, I couldn't quite wrap my head around it because they did a decent job hiding this in the trailers, which makes sense if you think about the way these movie houses pump out these trailers. I was like, why does this look so bad? It's like the backgrounds and the faces don't match. And like, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's because like,
I took it as a style choice. Like he's supposed to be dreaming in that part, right? Or he's in the multiverse in his dream.
Yeah.
He's not in a real,
I don't
he's
blame
in the place between universes. So
I don't blame you for thinking,
weird.
Yeah, I don't blame you for thinking it's a style choice, but if you thought that, then it's like, I would still say that it's a terrible style choice if that's what it was. But I don't think, what I'm really saying is when the movie starts making style choices, is literally everything after the earmark I just mentioned. Everything before that, I cannot say is a style choice. And when I explain how this movie is made, it will make sense. I 100% think this was the part of the movie where they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They changed it like 1,000 times. And because they made so many changes, the visual effects companies literally just did not have the time in order to make the release date to do proper compositing and blending like they would do.
You think so?
100%. I feel like I know so. I'm not the only one who's pointed this out, but yes, like 100%. 100%. They try to, you thought we wouldn't notice, but we did it. That they did. They were like, we're not pushing the release date. The movie needs more time, but we're releasing it anyway. They did it. They did that. And some of it probably could never be solved because, like I said, it's not just the visual effects being like slightly under complete. It's also just the lack of like creativity and choice and bad storytelling and just like Frankensteining together scenes and ADR and all this shit, all the messiest shit you can do in a movie. So why did this happen? Well, those who've been paying very close attention to the lineup, which is something I always come back to. And this is why I come back to it, because it can tell you a story in of itself. When Marvel moves release dates or when things happen and pandemics happen and directors get fired or replaced, right? Well, things change. And Marvel, unlike other movies, is not just working on a one movie thing. Every single production ties into every single other production narratively and in terms of the world building, if not outright directly, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, and this one has a lot of connection. So that made it very, very problematic. Here's why. Originally, this movie was supposed to come out before WandaVision, before Loki.
What?
Before,
movie.
This movie was supposed to be...
How would this have even made sense before WandaVision?
Because it was a completely different movie. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. It wouldn't make sense the way it is now. That's the point, is that they completely had to change the movie. This is up until like really recently, it was supposed to come out before No Way Home. That was the biggest thing they had to change, is that they had to make it so that this movie took place after No Way Home. So that caused them to make a lot of changes, like
a lot.
A lot.
I mean, wow.
Yes. Yeah. So here's the issue. So you think about that. And it's hard to even know. And like, as I'm not saying this would have worked perfectly. In some ways, I like the way we ended up in terms of the stories to some extent. At least up until the point of some of the weaker parts of this movie, because the flow to me from WandaVision to Loki to What If to No Way Home worked great. Then you throw in this movie, and it's not that it suddenly doesn't work, because I think, to be fair, I think they did it as good of a job as they could have, making it all kind of fit. But it just shows you what a disadvantage they were really operating under. I think if they had more time, if they pushed the movie back another few months or whatever, maybe not more, but like really took their time. I don't know. It's hard to Monday morning quarterback at all, because obviously the order we have now, which, remember, it's basically like the thing that was supposed to come first is now last, and several things in between are like, or you know what I mean? So it's like, so literally now it went from WandaVision to Loki to like, and I'm naming the things that most involve the multiverse. Notice, WandaVision, Loki, What If, then No Way Home, now Multiverse Madness last. And I think the things that are most obvious to this are, remember all the stuff about Strange being the Sorcerer Supreme versus not being the Sorcerer Supreme. So now Wong is, or whether Wanda's even the villain of this movie. Wanda was always supposed to be in this movie, but I think the original intention based off the order was more like Wanda is the like secondary hero in this story. At the end of this story starts to break bad. That's the story of WandaVision. Then after that, we're in an unknown future. Maybe she's broken bad. Maybe she hasn't, right? That's not what happened here. They took the story of WandaVision, kind of had her be, problematic from the start. Then kind of like, this is one of the biggest contradictions, is that if you notice at the end of WandaVision, it's not like, even though you see that post-credit scene with her in the Darkhold and she has it, the arc of WandaVision is supposed to be her learning to deal with her grief. And then at the start of this movie, she's like, I can't deal with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, and granted, it's been some months and she's been in the dark, and that's why they have all the line, the Darkhold like has been poisoning her mind. And I get it. I'm not like a lot more people are much more upset about that part of it than I am, if I'm being perfectly honest. And we're going to talk about it. But I think even aside from the shuffling of the order and the continuity, there's also the fact that in relationship to that, the original director, Scott Derrickson, he leaves. They hire Sam Raimi pretty quickly. I remember that whole, like, all those news stories happening relatively quickly. Now, Sam Raimi is an inspired choice, and everyone knew it the minute it got announced. And then, you see what No Way Home did, and I think it maybe set up some unnecessary hype. I know, because I follow Raimi memes very closely. People were like, Toby's going to be in this movie. He was not. But that aside, they also hired Michael Waldron to be the screenwriter on the film, and he's the guy who was writing Loki. So they were trying to make this work. They wanted to keep it close. They wanted to be like, yeah, all these things got to fit together, blah, 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 blah. But you also have COVID. So there's a lot of delays due to that, right?
Yep.
And so it just becomes this thing where in 2021, they released all these shows and several movies to make up for the movies they didn't release in 2020. And Multiverse Madness went from a 2020 movie to a 2021 movie to a 2022 movie. You see what I'm saying? It's like,
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a lot of issue there. And they reshot giant chunks of it. And so I think that whole first 30 minutes is just like, the reshoots affected everything. I'm not saying it's just the first 30 minutes that involved the reshoots. I know for a fact that's not true. But the first 30 minutes was the part where normally you do this thing called an act one and you set up the story. The reason this movie didn't do that is not because they were like, oh, we want to just hit the ground running. It's because they literally didn't have an act one anymore. Because all the act one had to do with shit that didn't happen in the order they thought it was. So like they had to basically just like cut it together like crazy. So it's kind of a mess, and I think it shows. Now, I think one of the other last little things, and it's interesting to think about, because remember, going all the way back to the beginning of our recording this stuff together in WandaVision, and a lot of the changes even after the COVID, I think, and this is the changes that I have to say, but hopefully for the better here. I can't say for certain. But after not only WandaVision, but then No Way Home's reactions, so they were still shooting this movie when No Way Home came out, by the way.
Wow.
So they knew what was happening. The Ralph Boner effect is what I call it. You remember Ralph Boner, our friend?
I do.
Ralph Boner. Right. I think that's why Krasinski's in this movie and Professor X. I don't know if they were before that.
Really?
And I think it's great that they are. Don't get me wrong. And it doesn't even matter. Maybe they were playing, maybe they weren't. Either way, it's great having them, and we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. But like, I just think that they were like at that point, and specifically with Krasinski, Fantastic Four, because remember all the WandaVision rumors, he's gonna be in it, and then he wasn't. Like people were like, they're like, okay, we got to rip the Band-Aid off that, and we need to establish X-Men, because I think originally in the original planned order, I mean, Ralph Boner might not even been Ralph Boner. Like they might have used Multiverse of Madness, had it come out first, to be like, multiverse is here, everything's in play. And
again,
then boom.
Poor Wanda. He's trying to be Pietro. Ralph Boner.
Yeah.
Yeah, there could be other characters that are like him for sure. Popping up.
So now let's flip it over to where I'd say the movie actually becomes good. And it's not perfect. It doesn't make up for the rest of it. And I think the sum is still less than the sum of the parts, or the total is still less than the sum of the parts. I'll give you like my full take on it coming up. Like I want to make sure I explain all the different pieces first. The parts that are good though, once you get after that first 30 minutes, like, I mean, I noticed it as soon as I start seeing Wanda's black fingertips, right? Like the dead fingertips. And like what I said, it starts to go horror movie. It starts to feel like, oh, Sam Raimi's kind of drawing in from the Evil Dead, Army of Darkness shit that made him like a voice in cinema. And like it feels like this is what he's good at. And they're letting him do it in the context of a Marvel movie. It actually makes sense because it's literally Wanda in the Darkhold. Like it's a Necronomicon. It's like got all the shit, right? And it's like, there's Doctor Strange. It all makes sense. And it's like, for the most part, and I thought this even more in the second one, it's like now the movie's good. It's like kind of like a Sam Raimi movie. It's like it's almost MCU upper tier in some sense, in some feeling, in terms of like, because a lot of what makes an MCU upper tier, in my opinion, is usually that it actually does have a distinctive character, and it does. I don't mean character like the way it's made and the way it feels. Think your Thor Ragnaroks or Black Panthers, right? It's like it's got a distinctive feel and vibe, and it's like it kind of stands on its own. And it's cool. And so this is where I get into the all the gore and gruesomeness. It's like thank God it had that stuff. I'm sorry it offended some people, but that's what makes this movie stand out. Everything that's good about this movie comes to that stuff, if you ask. It's all that stuff. The rest of it, I'm not so sure. But that stuff works. I think not only the style, like when I talk the style, it's not just the gore. It's like the way that, the swirling cameras, the first person cams, the kind of just like sort of distorted close-ups, the shaking, the sort of just winks and nods, and also tonally, like there's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek to the violence that not even beyond the usual Marvel winky humor. It's like that, like it's like when we'll talk about the kills in a moment, but like more thoroughly, but like when someone gets cut in half, it's like, oh shit, they get cut in half. Or like later towards the end when you get the crazy like inky demons that are straight out of Army of Darkness, and they're like, ah, they're like laughing and screaming and stuff.
Yeah.
That's very Raimi style and Raimi vibes, and I think that's what kind of works for it. I mean,
that's why we got the cameo at the end, I thought.
Oh, with
right?
talking about Bruce Campbell, the
Bruce Campbell at the end, yeah. Because for a second, huh?
He's the character calls himself Pizza Papa.
Yeah. Is Pizza Papa an actual character, or just because Sam Raimi likes to work with Bruce Campbell?
Well, I don't know if he's in the comics. I don't think so. I think it's an original thing they cooked up where it's like, hey, you're this pizza vendor in this other universe and your pizzas are balls, and America takes them because she's like, oh, most food in other universes is free, which I thought was a nice touch. But this one, it's actually not free. So he's like, hey, pay up. Pizza Papa gets what he wants. He always gets paid. Yeah, then Strange does the spell, and then that becomes the final stinger, which was, again, all very clever, good Raimi Campbell shit, like just like in the Raimi Spider-Man movies, and it's great. They even had the Oldsmobile in the movie at some point. I forget where, or I didn't spot it myself. The internet told me, so shoot me.
Was it in the space, floating in space with all the other stuff?
It might have been.
In between universes, I thought there was a car, but
yeah. Well, let's this is where I wanted to get into it anyway. Let's so obviously you've seen the Raimi Spider-Man movies. Have you seen the Evil Dead movies? Is that a thing?
I did. I had to watch a bunch because obviously they didn't cast me, but I was up for one of the parts in the last remake. So
really? The Evil Dead remake?
Yeah. So at that time I had to watch everything because I hadn't seen it. And I was like, well, I need to know the history if I'm going to do this part properly.
Wait, so, I feel like we've established this on the show before, but I found getting confused when I remember. Are you like a horror person or no?
I like horror movies, but they're not going to be like my go-to. If there's like, I'll space them out. I'm not one of those people that can watch horror movies all the time. I watch them once or twice a month with the lights on. That's fine.
Yeah, for some reason in my head, maybe it's just because like a lot of people are really into
I gravitate
sci-fi,
towards
like
sci-fi.
Horror.
I gravitate towards sci-fi, and I gravitate towards historical pieces.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, because like there are horror fans tend to be like horror fans, like they've seen everything.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was like, wait, is Dana one of those people? I couldn't quite replace it. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so now I get maybe more why you're like, because I was like a little bit surprised when you brought it. I know you were like referring to other people's opinions, but it sounded like your own opinion wasn't too far removed. Because like I'm kind of curious, like what, like I guess I haven't talked to too many, but like a hardcore horror fan, or especially like an Evil Dead, Sam Raimi fan, like specifically how they would feel about this movie. Because I'm not one myself, but I definitely am very partial to the whole thing. Like at least like it's maybe it's not perfectly my thing, but I get why other people like it, and I like it quite a bit myself. It's like that. So yeah, I guess since it's neither of us is like real thing, we don't need to get more into it. I'm sure there are other podcasts that'll give you all here's every little bit that's exactly like this thing in Army of Darkness or Evil Dead 2. But I think the general premise and vibe, like Darkhold, Evil Book, all these different things, it kind of works. It's kind of obvious in a good way. I think a lot of people, when they first heard Raimi was coming on, if they weren't immediately thinking that stuff, they were like, oh, like I said, Raimi memes is like, it'll be like, Spider-Man 4. That was like a whole meme for like a year. It's like, this is actually just secretly Spider-Man 4. That's what this movie's going to be. Little did we know, No Way Home kind of was more of that than anything else. And yeah. But in any case, we can kind of move off the Raimi tip. We'll talk a little bit more about it here and there. I guess the next question, though, is, I guess I've been kind of answering it a little bit, but I'll give my full thoughts on it. And you've kind of answered it yourself too, but I'll give you a chance to add on. Is like, is this movie good? Like, really? Because like I mentioned
who's asking?
30 minutes is terrible.
Who's asking?
I'm asking.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm asking my friends at the bar, is it good? They're probably going to say yes. If somebody from my film class I run into on the street asks me, if I ask them if it's good, they're probably going to say no.
Yeah.
And
I don't know though. I could see it the other way around. I could see it the other way around in some senses. I know what you mean, and I think you're probably more right than not, because like maybe the film person is like a big Raimi Evil Dead fan, and they're like, I loved it, even though it was like Evil Dead.
And that's
like
fair too.
Whereas a regular person would be like, I found the movie confusing and like stupid. Like, I get you. Yeah, I agree with you though. But the real haters and the real backlash, at least from what I've seen, to be fair, I think they're mostly pointing to things that I would agree are not great about this movie. And like, it's just a matter of like, does the good outweigh the bad, or is the bad as they say? And I think it also brings up this other question that's a little bit harder for me to answer, which is this movie, if I say this movie's good, like, does the question become, is it legitimately good? As in like, really, is it good? Come on, like, be honest. Or are you giving it kind of this MCU mulligan because you're like, oh, well, it had these production problems and stuff had to move around. And so, all things considered, I think they did a good job, or it's good enough because whatever. I just want the MCU to keep going. I like Doctor Strange fine enough. Just give me the next one. It's a quick hit. Let's move on.
Come on, but they've had a long time. And to be fair with the movie industry, the only mulligan any of us should ever take is Carrie.
Okay, Dana. Nice try.
Put it on the gravestone.
Yeah. Well, look, I think for my answer to this question, and hopefully the rest of everything I'll say backs this up, but it's a bit of both. I don't know. It's hard for me to sort it out myself. Like, I honestly spent most of yesterday after seeing it the second time asking myself this question. That's why I wrote it down in my notes. It's like, I don't know. On my Letterboxd, I shifted my rating and my ranking order for it like 10 times. I think I found the right spot and the right correct take that'll hold, which we'll get to. But I think it's kind of mediocre. I think it's mid-tier. It's a mid-tier MCU movie. It's not. I think it's worth more than some of the things I'd put in the lower tier.
I would agree with you there. Yeah, I think I agree. It's not toward the top, but it's definitely not at the bottom.
It's where it gets more complicated, because I mean, like, I was saying that in specific reference to other MCU movies. In terms of just it being a movie, it's even harder to say. I think, like, I had fun seeing it the second time. There's no doubt about it. But I was also kind of like a little bit checked out too. Like, it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, it was, I don't know. Well, I guess time will be the real teller, but for now, I think it's mid-tier. I think it's like not a particularly great movie, but like it has a lot of really great parts, I think. And I think there's some interesting things, and I think I'll remember it. I think even though I was checked out, I think the movie's very memorable. It's like one of those sort of like things that little contradictory, doesn't quite make sense, but it is what it is. Okay. Now into the multiverse. Because like I said, the first 30 minutes, you're not even really in the multiverse yet. Then the movie starts to get better with these Wanda horror set pieces. And then finally you get into Universe 838, which is, even though it's just one single universe, it's kind of like the main multiversal aspect of this film. And again, if you're comparing it to things like Everything All at Once, clearly it's gone a very different way. Or even Loki, honestly. Loki had a lot more going on with its various variants and stuff. Now, mention Pizza Papa. I thought that was a nice little sort of start to the whole kind of like, oh, here's a different world. Pizza balls. It's a little stupid. But what I like about this little section of the movie is that it's like after a very kind of bumpy start, it finally slows the fuck down to give you a little story and character. I mean, this is where we get kind of like America Chavez's like backstory. It's where we get the sense of like, oh, right, like Strange actually cares about what's happening to Christine. Again, that aspect is a little forced, but whatever. It's enough. All this, though, is just preamble to get us to the big thing that everyone probably wants to talk about. And then we were all waiting for when we wanted to see the movie, which is, what are the cameos going to be? What's this other universe going to be? Like, what are we going to see? How are things going to build from there? And
John Krasinski.
Yes. Eventually we realized, or they even started, we all figured it out in advance. And then the TV spots literally started mentioning it by name. The Illuminati. We get the Illuminati. And I've been telling you, if you told me even like 2 years ago, we'd get the Illuminati in this movie, I'd be going fucking ape shit because I've been waiting for the Illuminati. Yeah. I've been like, give me the Illuminati. I want the Illuminati. But I was like, well, they can't do the Illuminati without Professor X. Well, we got Professor X. Okay. So, and look, I think I'll start off by saying this. To do the Illuminati, at least like now, this was by far the best and only real way to do it, which is to make it the Illuminati of a quote, another universe. Right? That way you could do things like, well, in this universe, we're not going to explain it. You would leave it to your imagination, which by the way, I like, though I will definitely take a very cool Universe 838 spinoff comic or tie-in novel or something that like tells you, short film, whatever, tells you, oh, here's the history of Universe 838 in more detail, like all this stuff. But I don't think they're going to do that because I think they want to save their best ideas for the Universe 616 or future movies, right? Now, the reason I say that is because I just love the way they just drop you into it and are like, yes, in this universe, X-Men and Fantastic Four are here with our MCU people. They fought Thanos. So there were X-Men fighting, and X-Men and fucking the Richards family was fighting Thanos too in this universe. I love that. And immediately just like, it's like I said, the Ralph Boner effect. It's just immediately the opposite of that. It's like, no. Don't overthink it. It's all there. We'll deal with it. It's another universe. That's all you need to know. You can leave it to your imagination, right? So, yes, let's talk about the actual lineup of this Illuminati, which I think is interesting. You have Mordo kind of presumably taking what was formerly Strange's place as the new Sorcerer Supreme, blah, blah, blah. And it's cool to get Mordo back. It's kind of interesting. Again, they use this other universe as a stand-in for, oh, yeah, remember how the end of Doctor Strange 1, Mordo was supposed to be this villain? Well, we never really had time to deal with that in 616. So whatever. Here's 838 Mordo. Cool. Get Professor X, Charles Xavier. Yes, with that musical cue too, which was a very nice touch. Did you catch that?
That's exactly right. He deserved it.
Oh, and I mean, I'll tell you that actually my favorite part, and I literally have my little X-Men Professor Xavier's school, like old, it's like literally from 1992. It's like I had it since I was like 4 years old.
Stop.
Yes. This book, it's got all the X-Men animation. I have the original VHS pilot. I showed you a picture of all this stuff once.
Yeah, I know you do. I know yes. You have the VHSs.
Dude, these things, especially now, oh my God, X-Men 97's coming to Disney Plus. This stuff's going to be worth a lot more, even though they're not in great condition. But that's because I've literally had them for 30 years. But the favorite thing about the Professor X, forget the musical cue. They put him in the yellow chair in the green suit. That's what he's wearing. Yeah, I was like, yo, because in all the X-Men movies, we never got that.
No.
And so here we get
it. The OG comic book outfit, yeah.
Well, is it
the OG comic book outfit?
No, because the OG comic book would be wearing an X-Men 1 in like 1963.
Oh,
but
that's right.
This is what he was wearing in the X-Men animated series.
In the animated from the
early
90s
comics. Yeah. So there you go. Boom. Yeah. You get that. You get Reed Richards, John Krasinski's Reed Richards. The 4 costume is a little bit like, this just looks like it was taken directly out of that fan art render of him, which I think it probably definitely was.
Probably was.
Which makes me think, and so this is an interesting question. I don't know if you've heard people been talking about this. The use of Krasinski here is kind of like a choose your own adventure interpretation thing, because, or we'll see what happens thing.
I kind of see that. Yeah, because
they don't have to.
Maybe not.
Right. Maybe not. And even the costume, like I said, I have a feeling, well, I would almost hope so, But when we get the Fantastic Four movie, which now looks like it's even further away, because that's the other thing, another director shakeup. John Watts quit that movie. So we're back in searching for director mode. Not great.
How many years has it been since the Kate Mara one?
Oh, almost 10 years.
Oh my gosh, I'm old. I didn't feel like it's been that long. I'm like, that one just came out.
No, that was 2013. Yeah. Yeah, talk about a disaster. But here's what I'll say. If the one rumor about that director shakeup that fits in this other part is maybe John Watts dropped out so John Krasinski could direct it, so they could get John Krasinski to star as Reed Richards. That's possible. But if they, whatever the case, whether he comes back and stars, I hope so, actually, because I do think it's like, it's one of those things that's like, now that they've set it up in this 838 thing, it's like, I want to see it fulfilled. Like, I was never that like sold on the idea of him being him, but like at a certain point it became so, it's like the force majeure of fan will. It was like, which I think clearly Marvel responded to here. It's like, yeah, look, if that's what everyone's talking about, might as well just give it to him. Fuck it.
Give it to him.
But I'm saying keep giving it to him. They don't have anybody.
No, they don't need to recast it. He'll be fine. Just great. In fact, he'll be
especially if it's
personable than the other Reed Richards.
Well, you realize that one of the reasons people wanted it to be him is not just because of him. They're like, well, wouldn't it be cool if Emily Blunt then was Sue Storm? And so they didn't have her in it. They make reference that Sue Storm exists and that she's alive in the universe, though you don't see her. Doesn't really matter because, like I said, presumably the Fantastic Four movie will feature a 616 Reed Richards or something like that, or at least a different one than the one that's dead now.
Right.
But I was going to say, when they make that movie, I think it's inevitable we will get a much better designed Fantastic Four costume than the shitty one they put him in here. I mean, it looked good on camera. It just was like, I swear that's the exact one from the
exact same one from the first movie, the Jessica Alba one, or no?
No, it's not that one. Do you remember what those?
That was a little bit bluer. That's right.
No. Those were even like, go back and actually look at that data. Those are basically like straight up like blue zip up the middle jumpsuits, like skin tight ones. They look so stupid. They're like basically modern swimwear. They're literally a swimsuit.
I'm looking.
Yeah, look at.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah. Your memory made them more interesting than they were.
My memory did make them more interesting.
No,
yeah, it's
like
got
that.
Texture and it's got a weird little collar thing.
And didn't Jessica Alba kind of wear hers zipped down a little bit to show cleavage? Of course she did.
No, they're showing all of these. She's zipped up. Oh wait, except in the poster. Every scene from the movie.
I knew it. I remember that.
Every scene from the movie, it's up to her neck, and the poster for the movie.
The poster
is down.
they did it to show titty, of course.
Yep,
so
exactly.
Stupid. So stupid. Anyway. So yeah, Reed Richards, Xavier Mordo. Next one on the list, and this one was cool to see, and this is something that I guess we wouldn't get again since, according to WandaVision, she's now dead in the present timeline. But Maria Rambeau version of Captain Marvel. Obviously, we're going to get the Monica Rambeau. She already has her powers in WandaVision, but Maria's her mother. Because remember, I always forget myself. Captain Marvel 1 takes place in 1990 something. So it's like, you know what I mean? And Monica's the little girl in it. But then obviously by the time you get to the 2020s post-snap, she's an adult woman working for SWORD. That's the one we see played by Tiona Paris in WandaVision, who's also now going to be in the Marvels. So that'll be cool. But yeah, I like seeing Maria Rambeau because Lashana Lynch, who's also in the James Bond movie, she's just kind of badass. I like her. So yeah, it was cool to see her in Captain Marvel. I like the silvery version of the Captain Marvel suit. Like it was cool. It's cool with the mask. Everyone, when they were dissecting the trailers originally, thought that was Tom Cruise version of Tony Stark, Superior Iron Man. Which made sense with the Ultron bots, which were never explained because they don't mention Tony or Iron Man at all, but presumably he existed and just is dead and may have even been part of the Illuminati before, which, you know, interesting, but they decided not to mention it here, at least unless I missed it, which I don't think I did. But yeah, I liked Maria Rambeau's version. It was cool. Then we have and this was the big one that I think most fans were the most excited about. And this was the one that was spoiled for me, unfortunately, before I saw the movie, which was kind of lame, even though I expected it. Captain Carter, which, Data, didn't I fucking call this like months ago?
You did.
I did. I knew. I told everyone Captain Carter could be Multiverse of Madness. I promise you. And that's what I said. I got spoiled, but I didn't know when I said that. When I said that, it was like, because when I say got spoiled, I mean I got spoiled like a week ago, like just from some leaked image, not like, you know what I mean, from a European screening, not months ago when I said that. Months ago when I said that, I was purely doing story speculation. I was right, and it was dope. Seeing her live action like that was sick. Yes, she gets killed like they all do, but this presumably isn't even the same Captain Carter from the What If universe. I mean, it's possible that universe is 838, but I don't think so. So in other words, again, it's just similar. It's similar in the sense that it's a Captain Carter instead of a Captain Rogers, but I think it's a different Captain Carter, which means, again, multiverse, even if it's not infinite, we know there's at least potentially 2 Captain Carters that are like that. So there could be a third, there could be a fourth. They could come back. Secret Wars, we'll get to that. Then we get Black Bolt. And the Black Bolt thing is cool because nobody watched that Inhumans TV show, but there you go. You get the same actor, Anson Mount, playing Black Bolt in a much better costume here. Comic accurate. Black Bolt was always in the Illuminati, so that was cool. And we get the Ultron bots, and we get cool. Like I said, I already mentioned the music cues, and shout out to Danny Elfman, who did the score, worked with Raimi on the Raimi Spider-Man movies. Good stuff. Christine. Now, do we want to talk some Rachel McAdams as Christine stuff at all? I mean, like, what's your thought on this?
I was excited to have her. Yeah, I thought she did a really good job as Christine.
Oh no, Rachel McAdams always is good. Always is good. She's even good in the first one where from what I remember, she literally did nothing besides like, you know, be like, oh no. But well, she's a doctor, but surgeon, but like, it's like, you know what I mean? This was just an interesting sort of story to be like, oh, Strange's motivation is Christine's getting married to somebody. I forgot she even existed, but then we get the other universe version of her, which is the one I'm trying to talk about, who, yeah, she joins the movie only in the second half, but she leaves an impact. Just made me wish we got to her sooner and got her to do more. Cause like, I was like, oh, it was actually nice having her. And in the later scenes where she gets to be part of the very kind of rainy, like weird demons, dams are attacking her and stuff. And she puts out the fire. That was like a straight up horror movie, Raimi style Evil Dead kill with the fucking torch. So I was like, damn, we needed more of that.
Yeah.
So, I just wish we got more, honestly. And, if there is, I hope they bring her back, not just for Doctor Strange 3, because as we're going to talk about, we have another woman to deal with now. I just hope, I don't know. It would be cool to see her again. I know Rachel McAdams, at least according to interviews, Red Carpet, was like, yeah, I was glad to be back. I don't know why the fuck it took us so long to call me. Seriously. I guess because, like, this is why I think we might see her again. It's just because back in the day, it was like, well, we have Tony and Pepper, and we have this and that, so we don't need all these people. Pepper was kind of the stand-in girlfriend character for all Avengers movies. They didn't use the other characters, which is, again, why Love and Thunder is going to be interesting now, bringing Jane back, because it's going to be like, oh, right, yes. Okay, you mentioned her before, but let's talk a little bit, because she's an important part of this part of the movie, but also like the third act and everything else that follows, and all the questions I have going forward is America Chavez. Now, I have to say, despite all the messiness, the cool part about the fucking messy and media res opening is that we're immediately getting America. Like, we're immediately getting her right out the gate. It basically means she's in the whole movie throughout the whole thing, which surprised me. I assumed like, oh, this will be a character introduced like halfway through. You know what I mean? That's what I thought. Because she wasn't really promoted very much in the marketing material. So that it was like I knew she was in it
on purpose.
I knew she was important, but yeah, maybe it was on purpose. I don't know. But like she's like the co-lead of the movie. She's in almost every sequence. Like she's with Strange the entire time. She's a big part. So that was a big surprise to me and a very welcome one, because I immediately loved her. I thought, and I was excited about the character in general, because I was like, oh, that's cool. but yeah, no, I thought Sotil, I don't know if I'm saying her name right. Social, how do you know how to pronounce it correctly?
Yeah, it's Sauchil.
Gomez. She's so it's actually funny because I said they weren't promoting her, but then when I show up at the theater, the special limited edition like Doctor Strange cup that I have with the little statue on top, they had ones with America Chavez's statue on top, and just the cup in general features her as the biggest character. Doctor Strange is tiny and she's huge on it.
I love it.
So I'm like, oh, well,
what is coming?
They did want to promote her. They just didn't really want to promote her in trailers and TV spots before the movie came out. But like, I think now they do want to make her a big deal. So that's cool. I'm excited. I think it ties into something we're going to talk about coming up about where this has all been going. But yeah, no, she was, and I thought, sorry, how do you say it one more time?
Sauchil.
I thought Sauchil, like, genuinely, like, again, right out the gate, but certainly as the movie went on, I only became more and more endeared to her. Like, I thought she did a really good job. And yes, there's a lot of messiness. There's all these reshoots. She probably had an ADR more than half her lines. But when it came to her specifically, I didn't really notice. And I've heard people say, oh, the little relationship with her and Strange is like, doesn't really work. And there's no real chemistry there. It's not like Tony and Tom Holland. I'm like, dude, first off, who the fuck said it was ever going to be on that level? I don't know why that's the only comparison we want to make. But I guess in a weird way, I don't disagree, but I don't care. I wasn't like, the point of her is to have her to be Doctor Strange's sidekick, which is, I think, the implicit omission of that like comparison. No, I thought it was to establish her as her own fucking character with her own arc. She actually has the most complete arc in the movie to literally where the movie fucking ends. It's like it's her that awakens to her power and gets to kick ass. And the whole point, which I guess, yeah, that's just our bridge to now talk about the third act and the ending, which is, I think, the best part of the movie by far.
Agreed.
Even though it still suffers from some of the lack of setup earlier, it's her coming in awake and then like ultimately being like, well, I can't, even though I have my powers, I'm still not fully there yet, which I think is cool. And so like the way I'm going to defeat you is not to just beat you up, but just to let you kind of yourself deal with what you're actually doing. So that was cool. And I'll talk about that in a second. Just rewinding back a second. The way the third act actually starts and the basic premise of it, it's like all the second act teasing and building up of some of the Raimi stuff was one thing. But when we finally get to this part, it's like, ooh, this feels like where Raimi and Waldron like really came in. Cause it also reminds me of like the way Waldron writes stuff like the Loki finale, where it's very focused actually. Rather than try to do a big battle with tons of shit, right? Because they could have done that. They could have had Wanda summon like an army and shit. They could have done all that nonsense. They're rather like keep it smaller, keep it intimate, keep it more true to the nature of the thing. And in Raimi's mind, the nature of the thing is like kind of like Doctor Strange has got to kind of almost like become more of a hellish guy to be the good guy type of subversion, right? So he fucking summons his dead body and then summons the Dan, which are kind of like similar to like the weird mountain men ghosts in Lord of the Rings, but with like inky, like not black smoke monster shit. And like I said, they have that sort of like Raimi trademark, like they're like laughing and giggling spirits type shit, like right. And so Strange has to put them under control. The best part was like Wong going, I don't even want to know. But actually, that's actually one of my favorite little marketing twists, which I love, is when they mislead you in the marketing. There's that great moment in the Strange trailer where they have Wong go, Strange! He's like screaming. It sounds like he's screaming in like anguish. But when you actually see it in the movie, it's actually him cheering. Like he's like, Strange, yeah! Like they cut off the second part to make it seem like it was like a cry for help.
Tricking us.
They put Wong in peril, but I was like, there's 0% shot they will ever kill off Wong now. He's like the most like popular character, low-key.
Everyone loves him.
Oh yeah, when he showed up in the movie to fight the fucking the guy, whatever, the squid monster guy, that was the biggest reaction in the theater. Honestly, bigger than Krasinski, bigger than everybody. We were like, yeah, people were going nuts. And as a veteran of like all the different Marvel meme like accounts, like Wong memes are the most popular ones. So I know. Yeah. So Wong comes in, and but yeah, he helps Strange like contain Wanda, and they use the dam. He's like goes full zombie demon lore with the crazy ass wings. It's dope, but he's the good guy. He's like learned, and then he finally gets to complete his character arc, which literally just comes down to the one line, which yes is paper thin, but I'm good. And we didn't mention it, but like they didn't include in Doctor Strange 1 the backstory about him having a sister who died, and then they just mention it casually here.
Right.
Well, not casually, you know what I mean? They make it a big deal, but they would have, the way they set it up, they would have made you think they mentioned it in the first movie, but they definitely did not, and have not mentioned it at all in the MCU prior to this.
See, I just figured I must have missed it.
Yeah, no, most people probably did. That's what I'm saying. They made it seem like, oh yeah, you just forgot that. It's like, no, you never mentioned it. You never mentioned it, you liar. They're gaslighting you. That's what I'm saying. They're gaslighting you, making you
remember this? No, I don't. When did this happen?
Yeah, they never mentioned it before. This. That said, yeah, the whole thing is like this letting go of the knife. So he lets go of the knife to America, does the opposite choice that the other Strange did in the beginning, and presumably other Stranges would have done. And, you know, that's what America Awakens, all that. But ultimately, all that is still not really what apparently matters to this movie, because like we haven't talked about her really at all. But the actual point and character that drives this movie, where all the story is ultimately coming from, is Wanda. I mean, that's what I mean. I don't think originally, especially since this movie is supposed to be before it, this movie was like supposed to be like WandaVision season 2, but that's actually what it is. Like, if you didn't watch WandaVision, you have no idea, not understand this movie at all. I don't think I don't think they intended that. Oh, I know they did. So, very fascinating choice here. And like I said, it kind of like puts the character in a weird spot in comparison to where WandaVision ended. So it's not, I wouldn't call it an inconsistency. I think it's explained. It's just kind of this strange sort of, just inversion of where you would naturally think a character who's actually doing better would go. Instead, they get worse. And then, you know, this, I'll just say before I get into any of the presumed controversy, I just think, I tried to mention it before when we talked about her going full horror mode, but Elizabeth Olsen in literally every single scene, whether she's going horror mode, emotional mode, just whatever, exposition bot mode, which is the most boring and hard stuff, but she does so much better at it than any other person in this movie. She's so good. Like, I think she's only gotten better and better and better. Like, she obviously did an amazing job in WandaVision. But like, I think for this version of the character, she really, really is like, I think she's taking her shine and like, yeah, all right. Yeah, I've been in these movies a lot, and now I'm really get to be the center of attention. I'm going to use it the best I can. And yeah, what'd you think of her performance and Wanda's character arc and all this stuff about that?
I mean, I don't think I can think of another character, like even throughout a lot of other stories, and like not even in Marvel or MCU, like anything, or like DC, like anything, like Wanda has suffered, and I just feel for her. I mean, it starts with losing her brother way back, and losing her homeland, and being born in basically a war zone, or growing up in this war zone area. There's that. Then to have these, what turns out to be legitimate, real children, not figments of her imagination, and Vision taken from her. So like, it's just, it's understandable that
by the
breaks
way,
bad, you know?
It is. And I want to address what you said, by the way. It just reminded me, like, low key, the best line in this movie might be when Strange goes, "They're not really, you made these children with magic." And she goes, "That's what every mother does."
Yeah. Oh my gosh. By the way, all the moms in the screening I was in started clapping.
Yeah.
And there was a woo and some clapping. So yeah, for sure.
Well, actually, so that's a good segue to talk about. And I don't have much to say because I don't think I quite agree with it. But like a lot of the criticism or controversy surrounding this character and choice, other than just like I said, the more basic, like it seems like a weird step from where we left her in WandaVision that's just meant to fit this idea. But like this idea that she's a villain who's motivated by motherhood and love of her children. Some people have been complaining that this is kind of like a sexist idea. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't really think I agree.
I don't agree either. And I'll tell you why, because every superhero and supervillain, their story starts with great loss, right? Hers is just it's a specific flavor of loss. It's a mother flavor of loss, but it's grief and loss and pain and anguish that push you to this place in comic books specifically to become something more, to do something more. And I think for Wanda, her loss is more relatable to women specifically, because even if myself, I've never been pregnant, but I think that the idea alone of having something that you've made and having the connection to that thing must just be so immense, you know? So yeah, it's great, but is it any more specific than Bruce Wayne having his parents murdered? Is that any different of a pain that's not warranted to make a superhero? No, it's all of this. It's, you know, any kind of grief that is carnal like that, I think is what pushes you in characters and superhero stories to find something more and to be something more. And in some instances, well, I think in all instances, especially when it comes to superheroes and supervillains, the supervillains don't think that they're villains. They are justified in their means. They are justified because the greater good is the greater good, and they're helping people. And so I think that that's
So I totally agree or see what you're saying at the very least. But it's actually at that last part where maybe I start to see the other side of it a little more, because here's the issue. It's not even really an issue with her motivation or the motherly side or the sexism. I guess that those things tie in if you want to buy that premise. But like right out the gate, Wanda's fucking murdering people. So it's like when she becomes a villain, she's arguably does more damage and is more of a direct villain, not just like a collateral, but like literally snapping motherfuckers' necks. Than a lot of other even just straight up MCU villains who are not even rendered to be all that sympathetic. Like I'm trying to like, if I did it, like I'm sure someone has this up already because nerds be nerds, but like has like a body count like tracker and a kill count tracker. And I guarantee she's done more damage than like, because a lot of MCU villains, especially again, this is where maybe the PG-13 versus PG-13 plus more gory, kill oriented nature of this movie again almost has this well, not necessarily unintentional, but nevertheless side effect, if you will, of like making Wanda seem like much more villainous and heinous than a lot of other MCU villains. Because you've noticed a lot of other MCU villains never kill anyone. Never kill anyone. I mean, like, I'm thinking about it right now. Like, like, Zemo, I think, kills, like, 3 people total. And even then, like, doesn't want to kill anyone necessarily. Right? Like... I don't know if, like, you know what I mean? Like so many of them didn't kill anyone.
No,
like,
I do see what you mean.
Here's the thing. And the movie kind of doesn't, even though the movie says this and establishes this, it doesn't really make too much of it. And then the way the movie ends, which we're going to talk about in a second, kind of like leaves you in a place where you're not even sure you're going to be able to reckon with this too much directly. But, you know, it is supposed to be like she's possessed by the Darkhold. So I guess in that sense, how is she more responsible than, say, Bucky is, right? And we had the Captain, we've dealt with that a lot, so we know, like, how we're supposed to feel. It's possible we'll get more Wanda or stuff in the future that'll deal with it in the same,
that is
similar-ish way.
Wanda's still in there.
So ultimately, Wanda, though, she after being confronted because America shows the other universe and realizes, wait, like exactly what Wong already told her in the middle of the movie. Hey, can't you just be happy that, like, you know what I mean? Like, that there are other yous with these kids. Like, you're going to rob them of their kids. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so she's like, fuck, you're right. And so she realizes she's right. And then she collapses the whole thing on herself. And it's like, presumably she's dead, though I give 0% chance that she's not coming back. And I don't even mean like another universe. I'm pretty sure this Wanda's still alive. Because she's fucking the Scarlet Witch. I don't think a building could kill her. Anyway. So yeah, that's how the movie ends. And then, yeah, there's that
also,
third eye business.
Is that a reference to The Wizard of Oz?
Well, Sam Raimi.
The Wicked Witch is done? Is dead?
Well, guess what? I don't know if you intended to make reference to this. You might have. I don't know. Do you know what Sam Raimi's last movie was? Because he hasn't made a movie in like 10 plus years.
Oh my God, was it The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, it is Oz the Great and Powerful.
Oz the Great and Powerful with James Franco.
Yes. Disaster, big flop. That's why he hasn't made a movie.
Yeah, so interesting because if that is what he's referencing, then she's not dead. Because the Wicked Witch, when they saying that she was dead, was she not? She came back and stole the little pretty ones.
Yeah. Well, yeah, basically. Okay.
Her feet turned to snakes underneath the house, so we'll wait for that.
So, and this will, I mean, we'll try to go through it relatively quickly, but this will take a minute. The kind of like where I want to wrap up is as kind of tradition here. I want to go through, and this is like, I mean, as I've been prepping for since we started, like this is a real checkpoint moment. So I think it's going to be interesting to have this conversation. Like, where we've been, where we're going, how should we feel, what do we think's going to happen? Like, this is MCU speculation time. All right. Well, you know, because now we're in after the movie, we'll talk about the stinger. We'll talk about all that. We'll get to all that. So first, let's just hone in on phase 4 here. Because, yeah, sorry, I just got distracted for a second. Yeah. My brain's farting. Okay, sorry. So phase 4 so far, as I mentioned at the top, we have had 11 entries, 5 of which are movies, 6 of which are the streaming stuff, including the most recent to wrap up Moon Knight, right? So here are them in order, all included, right? We started with WandaVision, then Falcon Winter Soldier, then Loki, then Black Widow, then What If, then Shang-Chi, Eternals, Hawkeye, Spider-Man No Way Home, Moon Knight, and now Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So,
wow, that's a mouthful.
It's a lot. It's a mouthful. We've had a lot of things. And so far, they've been more like, if you're looking at it like a story tree, they've been mostly starting new branches each rather than consolidate and convert. Even the ones that have a lot of overlap haven't really quite come together. And like I said, like a lot of people thought this movie was going to be the movie to bring it together, but it clearly wasn't. And in hindsight, it never could have been because of all the shit I was talking about earlier where they've changed the movie like 10 times over to fit it being after a bunch of other movies. So by design, it was never designed to be the culmination point of anything. It's meant to be the start of things, actually. But nevertheless, eventually we will reach a culmination point. And the question is, what have we done to get there? And what are the various threads I'm alluding to? So this is like the phase 4, where are we now? Like, where does it go kind of part. So first thing in the title is like, what the fuck are we doing with this multiverse stuff? Because here's what's happened so far. So in Loki, we've had what they said was the end of the sacred timeline, right? So the sacred timeline is basically the continuity that we know. The timeline of Universe 616 as we knew it up until the point was what they called the sacred timeline. And that was maintained by the TVA. The TVA basically, because and this is where it's like, I guess it's so metaphysical and quantum that like it's hard to like wrap your head around because it's like time is happening all at once from the perspective of these higher dimensional beings like the TVA, right? So it's like, oh, all this already happened, but it's also still happening. And so therefore there's still variants popping up like the Loki that, in that case,
female Loki.
like all the female Loki or old Loki, though technically the Loki we're following in that Loki series,
baby Loki with the alligator.
Baby Loki with the alligator. But like I think it's interesting to note in comparison to the Loki that we're following in Loki, because I almost forgot this until I just remembered it a second ago. We saw the direct cause of that Loki, which was literally the intervention of our Avengers going back in time in Endgame, which is interesting because it's implied that them going back in time in Endgame by the events of Loki itself, by the rules of the TVA itself, it's implied that them going back in time in Loki was part of the sacred timeline in and of itself. So therefore, doesn't it stand to reason that the Loki variant we have is an inevitable product? I think the answer to that question is yes, but it doesn't matter. Because like I said, everything happens all at once in the context of the TVA. And they're just like, they have one job to do. And as that series explained, like they kind of just do it mindlessly at first. Just erase all variants, kill them all. Yeah. And that's because, as we find out at the end of the series, that's because all of this is part of the design of this variant of Kang known as He Who Must Not Be Named. And he's the one who explains the other Kangs in the multiverse. And he says in that segment, we'll see how they follow up on this in Quantumania or wherever it gets followed up exactly. He was the first multiversal traveler. So again,
he was the one who invented it.
Because we haven't seen these events yet. And he said he's, as is in the comics, he's from the 31st century. So it's not, it's in the future of any timeline if we're talking about the 2020s. But this already happened in the sense of it's part of a sort of fifth dimensional multiversal continuity that's already taken place. Right? Because it has to be done in order for Loki to undo it. Anyway. Yeah, let's not get too bogged down into that. That we'll be here all day getting headaches. The point is, by the end of that Loki series, the sacred timeline's been undone and the path to the multiverse has been open. And Kevin Feige on the red carpet directly did say that, yes, in terms of like our story, that is the inciting incident. We'll explain more later. Anyway, other events that have happened and have directly to do with this movie and started the thread in WandaVision is the idea of, quote, chaos magic and the Darkhold, which is also directly tied in the multiverse. And we see that in the form of the dream walking we see in this, right? The whole idea is that the Darkhold's magic can penetrate other universes, right? And I guess at the end, they say Wanda destroyed the Darkhold in all universes. But I don't know. By the way, an interesting thing, technically this is comic continuity versus movie continuity, so I guess they made a change. But remember in the Wanda series, they kept saying Scarlet Witch is a Nexus being. Remember they said that?
A Nexus? Yeah, they did say that.
Okay, so here's what's interesting. A Nexus being, they didn't explain what that was, I don't think, in WandaVision, but in the comics, a Nexus being is explicitly a being that exists in all universes at all times, meaning like there isn't variants of that. But obviously in this movie, there's clearly other variants of Wanda. I mean, we see them and they're used. So a Nexus being...
I thought somehow they could affect they could alter the future or something. Is it because...
I don't know, because again, even Wanda's abilities to infiltrate the multiverse is explicitly because of the Darkhold, not because she's the Scarlet Witch. Now, the Darkhold and the Scarlet Witch are tied together. It's implied that the Darkhold was basically built for the Scarlet Witch, or vice versa. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
I wasn't just Scarlet Witch and Jean Grey. Those are the only two I can think of.
Well, Jean Grey is the Phoenix, not Scarlet Witch.
But she's a Nexus being too, right? Jean Grey.
Oh. In the comics, probably. Yeah. I have no idea. But I'm just saying that whatever a Nexus being is in the MCU, it either it's a continuity error or it can't be what it is in the comics. That's all.
Got it. Okay. Out. Yeah.
So we'll still await an explanation. I don't know. Anyway, the point is dreamwalking, even though the Darkhold's destroyed, I kind of wonder, I guess this is where it ties together into the question of the future. I kind of wonder if what they're going to do with Wanda is maybe her corporeal form did die. And maybe when the Darkhold's destroyed, she is kind of erased from the multiverse. but the Scarlet Witch as like the source of her magic, as like the sort of being within the being, which we kind of saw a little bit in WandaVision, where it's like she kept having visions. And again, this is built up more because the whole thing is she goes to that, I forget what it's called, that Forbidden Temple, and it has a statue of her that was built thousands of years ago. So that's what I'm saying. She's like a prophesized being, right? Or something that exists outside of time. And so that would fit in with the idea that she's a Nexus being, even though it's slightly different than the comics. It's a little bit more similar if that's the case. So what I'm saying is the Scarlet Witch might be dead, but she can't be dead. So she isn't. Like she's like a non-corporeal existence now. And she might come back in a corporeal form, but you see what I'm saying? Like something like that. Anyway, extra dimensional invaders. This is something we got more in Shang-Chi, but I have to think it's connected. And this post-credit stinger of this movie, I think, has an potential tie-in. So I'll get to that in a second. So when I say that, remember in Shang-Chi, it was like the villain, the evil monsters were coming from a, quote, other dimension. Now, the only time we had mention, sometimes dimension in timeline or dimension in other universe, right, in the multiversal sense, are used interchangeably. But we have, quote, other dimensions going back to Doctor Strange 1, which is before all the multiverse stuff, and definitely is not meant to necessarily tie into that. And that was like the, quote, Dormammu dimension, remember? Now, that gets tied back in at the end of this movie in the post-credits, because all of a sudden a portal from Dormammu's dimension, because if you look behind the character in question, and their character is directly tied to Dormammu, by the way, as I'm about to explain, the character in question, it's clearly the Dormammu universe we saw in Doctor Strange 1, or the Dormammu dimension, I should say. And the character who comes through, played by Charlize Theron, which was not something anyone knew. That was like out of nowhere. No, that was like a real surprise. I guess it's like,
they did a really good job.
It's like the Harry Styles
good job of hiding it.
Yeah, it's like the Harry Styles star.
Her name's Clea.
Clea, yeah,
is she Clea? Yeah,
Clea, yeah. So Clea is the daughter of Dormammu. So that's what I'm saying. It ties directly into all that. And she says, "You've caused an incursion. You need to come with me." I'll get to the incursion thing in a second. It's important. But the point is, I think Dormammu and Dormammu's dimension, and therefore even the other dimensions, like the sort of dimensions where these monsters are coming from in Shang-Chi, we're now meant to, like, even if it's a retcon, we're now meant to understand these as other universes in a sense. And therefore, you see what I'm saying? It is all tied together through that. So Clea and Dormammu are from this other universe, even if they keep calling it dimension. Those monsters in Shang-Chi, same thing, right? And it's similar to the extra dimensional monsters Wanda's something. It's all kind of connected, I think. Then you have, as shown in What If, the idea of the Watchers and interference by the Watchers, right? And how that affects the multiverse. Again, I don't know what they're doing, but I would love to see live action Watcher Jeffrey Wright come up somewhere. I think it's inevitable. So we'll see where that goes.
I'll never say no to Jeffrey Wright in any of the things.
Obviously,
by the way, Westworld's going to start again.
Yes, I saw the new trailer for that. I forgot to mention that when we talked about the TV stuff. I guess that's because it dropped just yesterday. But there was the spell in Spidey, which, while technically that's been, quote, resolved, there was the sort of pretense that it could be undone. You know, the same way it could be undone is what I'm saying. And we saw all the different Spidey things coming from those cracks. So interesting. Then we have America's powers, and they never explicitly say this, but given the coloring and the visual design, I have to think that America's powers and the, quote, Book of Vishanti are the same thing. Like she's like the human form of that, I think. And one of the clues to this, again, it's blink and you miss it.
Well,
but I
there's only one of them. They're mystical.
Yes.
And but those are both things that apply to America and the book.
I'll tell you the biggest clue, and it's very blink and you miss it. I noticed it the first time, but I haven't even seen anybody really point this out. When the book falls and the pages flip over, one of the pages has the star, the America Chavez star on it.
It did?
Yes. People will figure this out when it comes on Blu-ray, or eventually. I'm sure someone's screen capped it by now. But yes, that's there. I assure you, I did not. I saw it again the second time. It's there. So my theory is that her and the book are the same thing. or their powers are directly related. Like she's like the book in human form, something like that. And since the stars have to do with her mom's too, and whatever universe she's from, I have to think the reason we don't get that plot line resolved is because long-term, those people are going to become important people. Like whenever we get the Secret Wars version of Infinity War, that's going to be like one of the quest line points. Is like, we got to go find those people. They have like all the power to like control the multiverse or something. Anyway. Yeah. Then incursions. I mentioned it before. So what's interesting about the term incursion, which we are hearing for the first time in this movie, is that incursion is a term that was used in the Avengers comics specifically about universes colliding that need to be undone. So if that follows that we're going through that thing, I think, yes, this is proof that even though we're still very unclear, I think it is just because of the movie order shuffling, Marvel does somewhat know what it's doing. I think they said they're having this meeting about the next 10 years, probably because they're like, okay, now that we like got through the rough COVID slate, let's like reconfigure to make sure we have this right. But I think the intention is still the same, which is, yeah, we are going to do Secret Wars. Yes, the incursions are part of that. Yes, Kang's part of that. Yes, the Watcher's part of that. We're going to make it all tie together. We just got to give us time. We didn't expect to go in the order we went, right? So that's all good. And the Strange, Clea, I think that's, again, setting up for that. It's setting up for some movie. We don't even know what it is yet.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think it's Doctor Strange 3 in 5 years. I think it's the next like sort of big hit, like crossover movie, whatever that is going to be. Or maybe it's another solo movie that leads to that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Sorry, what were we going to say?
No, I was going to say maybe we get a full-blown origin, although we do know so much about her now for America, or we can get her kind of, what is it called? Coming of age?
I have a
her coming of age story.
I have a theory exactly where we're going to see her next and what some of the things that are going to be announced coming up are going to be. It's going to tie into something. Well, remember where she ends at the end of this movie specifically is what I'll say, but I'll explain in a moment. The last thing I want to say before I move on to the next part of this little recap I'm trying to do is the fate of Wanda, right? We talked about it. Yeah, I don't think she's dead, all this stuff. But another thing tied into it that's very conspicuously absent in the movie. Again, I think the reason it's absent is 100% to do with the order reshuffling. If they had planned this out better, they would have done something with this, or they could have planned this out better. They would have. There's no Vision. No Vision anywhere. No mention of Vision. I mean, you see him a little bit in the fake WandaVision TV stuff. You see reference, but like that's
Vision is definitely a Nexus being, right? So then, if he exists in all universes, he's not.
Okay, there's not an answer to that question yet, is what I'll say. But like the reason I said no is not necessarily that he's not an Nexus being, but there's literally two Visions right now. That's why I said literally in my notes, I said MIA Vision parentheses, because remember how WandaVision ended? There's literally two Visions. There's the rebuilt Vision, who's the white Vision, and then there's the Vision that Wanda created, right? And they're talking to each other. They have that great scene where they talk about the ship of Theseus, where it's like, which one of us is the real one? There isn't an actual answer. Because we're both made from replaced parts, but we both the same consciousness, but we're both two distinct beings. So there's no right or wrong answer. And I thought, like so many of the things Vision says, it's the most philosophical and accurate part of this stuff, the most exciting stuff. So I need more Vision. I need Vision
Agreed.
to come in and give me that stuff, because that's what's going to make it all
Paul
connect.
Bettany does solid acting work.
Yeah. Oh, and Paul, of course. But I think the only reason Vision's not in this movie, and it's very conspicuous, it's another one of those they thought we wouldn't notice, but we did type of thing, I think, on Marvel's part, is again, because of the order shuffling. Because think about it. If this movie happened before WandaVision, that means it would have happened before Wanda makes the new Vision. So that's why he's not in this. But yeah, technically both those Visions are out there somewhere. We don't know where they are, but they're out. Okay. So to answer your America question, where we leave America is where? At Camertage, and she's like in the robes. So she's training in mystical arts. Who else and this is interesting because this wouldn't have been planned. Because remember in No Way Home, how Ned suddenly can use the sling ring and opens the portals and sends Peter and the other two Peters in here. Remember that? It's only like the most important scene.
Yes.
Okay. So think about it. In the world where Multiverse of Madness happened first, that was going to be there's literally concept art to prove this, by the way. Leaked concept art. America Chavez was going to be in No Way Home and was going to be the reason the other two Peters show up. She was going to use her power to bring them. Yes, there's concept art of this. There's concept art of this.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh my God.
So, ironically, though, now because they couldn't use America because they needed to save America for her name's like a pun in of itself, because they needed to save America for Multiverse of Madness, right?
Yeah.
Because of that, they gave Ned the sling ring, and they showed that he had the potential with mystic arts. So now, instead of one, they have two characters who are young people who are potentially training in the mystic arts, or could be trained, because Ned, where we leave him, is not actually being trained, but he could be getting trained. He should be getting trained. Anyone who has the potential like he has, Kamar-Taj should snatch him up and start training him, right?
100%.
Obviously, he's going to college. Well, I forget what it's called exactly, but I'm pretty sure it is called this. There's a comic line called Strange School. So I think it's inevitable we're getting a Strange School Disney Plus thing, if not literally Strange School with America and Ned, which would be dope.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Great pairing. I can tell already. But I think if it's not literally that, it'll at least be part of the biggest, like, hidden in plain sight. I mean, it's not even hidden. Everyone knows. It's all anyone talks about. Clearly, they're building Young Avengers. America's another Young Avenger. Literally every single MCU Phase 4 thing has introduced at least one Young Avenger. So it's like, duh, they're doing it. They haven't announced it yet, but it's happening, obviously. I don't know if it's a movie or Disney Plus thing. I hope it's a movie, but literally every single one has introduced one. I'm sure there's one in Thor we don't even know about yet. Or maybe like Kid Loki shows back up in Thor. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah.
Well, we know we're getting Natalie Portman.
Well, Natalie Portman wouldn't be a young Avenger. I mean, no offense to Natalie Portman.
No, not a young Avenger, but like a new character, technically.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised, since Love and Thunder is the next thing, which is like what I'm about to talk about, which is like literally what's the next things we're gonna see in order. But since Love and Thunder is the next movie we're getting, I don't know who the young Avenger in it would be if it keeps up with the trend, but if it is, I wouldn't be surprised if we at least get another Kid Loki back or something else. We'll see. So here's the upcoming slate in order, because now we've discussed all the different plot lines coming out of this movie, right? So we have the next thing that's going to drop is Miss Marvel, the Disney Plus show. So literally another young Avenger, but she's the title character in this case. Miss Marvel in June 8th, right? Then a month later, in July 8th, we get the Thor Love and Thunder movie. Then, again, unannounced date, but presumably this fall, we're getting She-Hulk on Disney+. She-Hulk, yeah. And I don't know, She-Hulk, I don't know, might count as a Young Avenger. We'll see. There is a Hulkling character in the Young Avengers comics. Maybe somehow they're introduced in this. I don't know. Be interesting. Interesting comic canon. I think, I think in comics that Billy or Tommy, I forget which one it is, one of the Wanda's kids is gay and has a relationship with the Hulkling character. So I don't think they're ready for that yet, especially not these days with what Disney's been dealing with. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. So you have She-Hulk. Then, and I can't believe this is actually coming out. It hasn't been delayed. I don't think it will be delayed because they can't afford to keep delaying stuff. We saw how much delays hurt this movie. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is supposed to come out November 11th. We haven't heard or seen a single thing from it. We don't even know who Black Panther is in this movie.
I wonder if they're not going to tell us.
They're probably not. They're probably going to keep all that real secret for the movie. I mean, they've kept that secret so far, so it makes me think. And remember, Thor Love and Thunder, which is coming out next month, literally only had its first teaser trailer like a few weeks ago. So I think, again, COVID delays, all these different things, they're being very close to the chest because they're not sure about how they want to deal with things when they don't have.
And I mean, maybe
it's
smart because if they announce something and then something goes down and they have to change it, well, now we already said it.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, there's Black Panther November 11th. And then the year 2022 will close out with the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, not Guardians 3. That's late. That's next year. But there's a Guardians holiday special that was shot concurrently with Guardians 3. James Gunn has talked about it. It's going to be on Disney Plus. I don't know what it's going to be in. It sounds like it'll be stupid, but I can all but certain it actually will have important story in it. So we'll see. It'll be like kind of like a bridge. It'll be a bridge between Thor: Love and Thunder, which features the Guardians and Guardians 3. So I'm excited about it. Then 2023, we start the year. We're going to start the year off with, this is the movie. Well, I'm very excited for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, but I'm also like, I don't know what's going to be in it. So the movie I'm most excited for, honestly, even more than Thor: Love and Thunder, which I know a lot of people are hyped about, but the movie I'm most looking forward to is actually Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which will come out February 17th, because that's definitely going to be a big multiverse thing. That's where we're getting Kang for sure. It was announced that he was cast as that character way back in 2019 for this movie. So yeah, that was obviously because they cast him in Loki and they just didn't want to tell people that. Then we have Secret Invasion, which presumably come out sometime early in the year / spring. That's going to bring back our Skrulls, Nick Fury, presumably Sword, presumably Monica Rambeau will be in that. We don't know for sure, but Emilia Clarke, Daenerys Targaryen, is supposed to be in it as somebody. I don't know. We'll see. That's going to be an interesting one for sure. Secret Invasion was definitely one of the more wild comic storylines, so I think it'll be cool to see that. Then big movie, Guardians 3 in May. Then we have the Marvels, which is the Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, Photon, Monica Rambeau team-up movie. Then we have Ironheart, presumably fall. That's the new black teenager Iron Man from the comics. That's coming. And then that's followed up with another Iron Man extended, like, sort of world thing, Armor Wars with Don Cheadle's War Machine. That's going to presumably come out either December, end of the year 2023, or maybe that's an early 2024 thing. We don't know yet. All right. What is all that? And this is how we're going to close up today. This is where we we did this last time when we talked about Shang-Chi, but like now we've had a few more things. And I think some things, it's weird because it seems like we've come a long ways, but we're even more in the weeds now, right? Because that's what I mean. Like, it's like all these different elements. None of them are getting, they feel like they're just in so many different spots. It's hard to know where it's going, right? So where I still think it's going, it has to go, is towards Secret Wars. So the question is, how do all these different things tie together? Here's what we know still in play that's coming up or was introduced, but I have a lot of questions. These are going to be a lot of questions. Okay. Question number 1. What the fuck are the 10 rings? There was a lot of shit in that Shang-Chi movie about them. And even the post-credit scenes are all about, like, literally Bruce Banner, Hulk, and Wong being like, we got to figure this out. So it's like, okay, start to give me some answers about that, please. I have to think they tie together with this, whatever, these alien civilizations that are about to get involved and extra dimensional worlds that are about to get involved, right? So that'll be cool to see. Then we have Sword, the organization, and the Skrulls. I kind of already alluded to this when I just mentioned Secret Invasion, but yeah, presumably all that's going to get tied in. This goes back all the way to Spider-Man Far From Home's post-credit, and actually just, where Nick Fury was revealed to be a Skrull, and the real Nick Fury's up on some starship for Sword. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. We got to figure that out. X-Men. Yeah, X-Men. Like I said, the WandaVision Ralph Bohner effect, I think that was all a mulligan that they, in hindsight now, that they did because they didn't want to ruin Multiverse of Madness, which was coming later. So now that we have Multiverse of Madness, we have Professor X. Obviously that version dies, but the point is that it opens the door to the idea that, yes, there are universes with X-Men. They can come in at any point. They're there. it's inevitable, I think, that we'll get the X-Men solo movie, or inevitable at least that X-Men will factor into whatever the next big Secret Wars crossover, whatever crazy thing. Likewise, Fantastic Four. We know we are getting a Fantastic Four movie. Unfortunately, it looks like we'll be getting it probably later than expected. Hopefully still in 2024 or around then, but yeah, who knows? Then we have Eternals and Celestials. Eternals did not do super hot, but though it did good enough. There's been no Eternals 2 announced. I don't think there was ever intention of an Eternals 2 in Phase 4, but all the stuff brewing with the Eternals and the Celestials, basically the way that movie ends, right? Like, then you introduce Harry Styles, Star Fox. It's like they got to do something with that. Again, I think it might all tie together this idea that I'm talking about with these extra dimensional forces and setting the table for the Secret War. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, hey, these rich civilizations are teaming up and they're here to protect the universe, whatever. Boom. Then we have, similarly also from the Eternals movie, the Knights and the Demons, which seems like it relates to Doctor Strange, but I don't know how much of what we saw in this movie will tie in or not. I just know that we have Blade, and then we have Black Knight, the Kit Harington Black Knight. And at the end of Eternals, it was like, hey, we're introducing yourselves to each other, and we're getting a Blade movie, presumably in 2024. So yeah,
awesome.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Then this is the more interesting question. I definitely want to get your thoughts on this, because Thor: Love and Thunder, they didn't show him, but the villain of that movie is Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. And we know Zeus is in it, and they're going to kill a bunch of gods on Olympus. And if you'd watched Moon Knight, you know that the Egyptian gods are part of Moon Knight. So this brings up a question that had never really been a question before. So it's interesting now to think about it as in, like, are there retcons coming? Like, how does this work? There was a little bit of something in Moon Knight about it, but like it didn't really fully add up yet. At least it didn't give us enough, which is, yeah, all the different, quote, God pantheons, I guess, similar to how it is in the Marvel comics, are a thing. They're a thing in the MCU, and they all coexist. Like, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? Like, so like you have Egyptian gods, you have the Norse gods, you have these gods. Now, the way the Norse gods were always set up, going back to Thor 1 and Phase 1, was the idea, and this just shows you how different Phase 1 was in terms of like how they wanted to pitch anything, right? It was like, no, they're just aliens in a different world who came to Earth a long time ago. So it was kind of like ancient alien theory. The whole premise of Thor 1 is based on this. So it's weird to me now to just suddenly be like, no, there's Egyptian gods and they kind of exist in the spiritual plane. And it's like everything they said in the mythology is true. So it's like, why? How? Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know how much they're going to try to explain this or not. I'm looking forward to Love and Thunder, because that's going to be directly the Norse people, aka the Asgardians, directly coexisting in the same movie as these Olympus people. I hope we get an explanation there that presumably will also fit the explanation for the Egyptian stuff. And if not, I hope they deal with it at some point. But in any case, I just think it's an interesting idea, because now that all these different gods and stuff are in play, I kind of wonder, how's this going to tie into future Secret Wars or whatever crossover?
You always have to think that. You always have to think that now.
Moon Knight's got to show up again somewhere. So there you go. Last things, and these are the more earthbound things. Thunderbolts. Now, we haven't talked about this, but William Hurt is now no longer with us. So we're not going to get, we're not going to get Thunderbolt Ross at any point. That said, obviously they already introduced Valentina, Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character, and she's been the one doing all the recruiting anyway for these like sort of more dark anti-hero Avengers. Yeah, perfect. So presumably we're still going to get something of that. I don't know if it's going to appear in its own spinoff Disney Plus thing or movie or what. I hope so. And then the obvious we've already talked about, Young Avengers. There can be zero doubt it's happening. I don't know why they don't just announce it. They're probably waiting for the next D23 or big event where they announce stuff. But now they've set up so many, it'd be like crazy if they didn't say, yes, Young Avengers. Here's when it's coming out. It's a movie. It's a Disney Plus, whatever it is. We just confirm it. Stop fucking wasting our time. We need something with Avengers in the name. I think that's actually why they haven't, because I think they're getting very precious with the Avengers thing. Like the way Kevin Feige addresses questions about Phase 4 is very like, hold on, everyone slow down. We're not talking about Avengers yet. And it's like, okay, but can we get to it? Because people have like, this is why I think there's a backlash around this movie, by the way. I've heard this be brought up multiple times. I'm sorry. Endgame kind of broke people's brains. People aren't going to be as patient now. And you just got to deal with it. Like, even if it's you don't say it's not coming out to 2026, it's better that you do say something, because people are going to be like, okay, but when is it happening? When is it happening? Like, I think that's why so many people went into Multiverse of Madness and were like, yo, I thought all the Avengers were going to show up. It's like, no. But like,
walk
that's
in and
because,
walk out.
Yeah, I think that's because people are hungry and they are expecting to be fed. So eventually they got to announce a new Avengers. And that's got to be part of this grander Secret Wars scheme or whatever it is. Okay. To wrap up here, I just want to give you my little checking. As I said, I already adjusted it like 10 times, but I said Multiverse of Madness is mid-tier. So I'm going to show you what I mean when I say, here's my all 33 things ranked in a row. I'm just going to like list them off. And you can tell me, like, I know we've gone on this before. If you hate this list, I know there's some ones that you definitely disagree with. But let's start from the bottom. Okay. This is where we're at. So last place, we have, The Incredible Hulk, Captain Marvel, Iron Man 2, Thor: The Dark World, Thor 1, Ant-Man 1, Doctor Strange 1, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Hawkeye, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Moon Knight. And then around here is where I would start kind of what I would say is the mid-tier. So at number 21, right, we have Black Widow, the movie, Eternals, WandaVision, Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness at 18. So yeah, even in the mid-tier, it's kind of the lower mid-tier. Then we have Captain America, the First Avenger, Iron Man 1, Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers 1, Spider-Man Far From Home, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I know my ranking of Winter Soldier and Guardians 1 is like a lot lower than a lot of other people's. And I just think that those movies are both wildly overrated. Like they were amazing at the time, but there's a reason Phase 2 is Phase 2. Okay. Because it was like a big important thing at the time, but like the Phase 3 content is just way better. It just is. Iron Man 3, then Guardians 2, and that's the one I know you hate. Like you're like, Guardians 1 is better than Guardians 2. I think a lot of people think that. I disagree. I think Guardians 2 is better. Now we're in the upper tier, and to start the upper tier, the only Phase 4 movie that's in upper tier, it's the bottom of the upper tier, but still upper tier in my opinion. And I thought a lot about this because I was like, wait, did I overrate this movie? I went back and forth and I thought about it. Granted, I didn't rewatch it, but I'm like, no, I actually think I've properly rated it. Shang-Chi. I think Shang-Chi low-key is it's really, people make a lot of muck about the ending with the monsters. And I'm just like, no, dude.
It was dope.
Whatever.
And as an archery student, I loved how prominent archery was in the movie. I was like, yes, archery's dope again. Everyone's going to want to come meet at the range.
Yeah, Shang-Chi. Then at number 7, we have Thor Ragnarok. Easy one. Civil War. Then the highest ranking Phase 4. Well, no, actually, sorry. Correction. Second highest ranking Phase 4. Highest ranking Disney Plus show. Loki at number 5. Number 4, Black Panther. Number 3, Avengers Infinity War. Number 2, Spider-Man No Way Home. So that's the highest ranking Phase 4 thing and the second highest ranking thing total. Number 2, Spider-Man No Way Home. Obviously, number 1, Avengers Endgame. There you have it. I think I forgot What If, but it's somewhere in the lower to mid region, so who cares? All right. There you have it. MCU recapped, restated. But yeah. All right. We're in the multiverse. It's in the madness.
See ya. Boom.
Get some women, take them to the Peachtree Dams. I say get liquored up and take them to the Peachtree Dams. Do you know what I mean? You know why? It's a scary thing to give to a guy like me. Do you know what I mean? I say get liquored up and take them to the Peachtree Dams. Do you know what I mean? I say get liquored up and take them to the Peachtree Dams. Get liquored up and take him to the Peachtree Dams. Do you know what I mean? You know why? Final cut. It's a scary thing to give to a guy like me.